The cloud. All right. So the first, so I've just done roll call, and just for the record, Bob Bender, Carol Blake, Deb Travis, and Joanna Edmondson are all here, so we have a quorum. I would like to start with the approval of the minutes of October 30th, 2024. Are there any corrections or changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Deb, under approval of the September 25th, 2024 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Carol, could you just press the key? You see where I'm?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
It says the meeting minutes were approved unanimously with changes.
yeah.
I think it meant with no changes, didn't it? Because usually if there are changes, the changes are noted there. So
Yeah,
I'm guessing it was supposed to be no changes, but
I'll make a note, and I
Okay,
can go back
check
and
it.
look at my notes, because luckily
Okay.
the September, there, Lauren, the
Yeah.
September meeting minutes are not that long ago.
okay,
In,
all right, yeah,
I'll
so
do-
take a
I'll
look
look
at
at
that. And one other item in on page 4, Sand and Paul's Playground.
Yeah.
It ends by saying this playground is one of just 2 playgrounds left in the Bronx. I think what it meant to say is one of just 2 playgrounds with a sand pit
lots, right.
left in the Bronx, yeah. And that's all I have.
Well, just to recap, I'll go back and confirm what the changes were, if there were any, and
Right.
and note them. And then make the change that it's not one of the last 2 playgrounds in the Bronx.
Right,
But just one of the last 2 playgrounds with a sand pit in the
right,
Bronx.
okay.
Right, very good. Any other changes, corrections? Okay, if there are no objections, then then the meeting minutes are approved unanimously. All right,
Mhm.
so. The chair's report, so I've got a lot of items with the chair's report, simply because we did not meet in November or December, so I just want to catch us up on a few things that were outstanding the last time we met. The first thing is Stewards of Bruss Park. So the Stewards of Bruss Park have announced that they are no longer in operation. They've been caring for Bruss Park since 2008, when they first started mowing the lower park. If you're interested in organizing cleanups in this park, particularly in the fall when the leaves are on the ground, please contact the board office or visit the Partnership for Parks website to learn more about volunteer opportunities and training. I received some reports over the holidays of people who were concerned about asbestos in the Van Cortlandt Park handball courts. We contacted the Bronx Parks Commissioner's office, and she has confirmed with us that there's no publicly accessible areas in the Van Cortlandt Park Stadium facility that have asbestos. So that was just a misunderstanding. Jerome Park Reservoir, Sedgwick Avenue trees. So the board office and I had a site visit December 3rd with Gregory Haber, the Deputy Director of Bronx Forestry, about the health and ongoing tree replacement of the pin oaks around the Jerome Park Reservoir on Sedgwick Avenue. The forestry unit recently removed 7 older trees which were in the process of dying, basically were not in good health, in order to reduce the risk of large branches falling or full tree failure. Many of the pin oaks along Sedgwick Avenue have a fungus which has shortened their lifespan and eats out the hardwood or the heartwood of the tree. Forestry intends to replace the trees that it's removed soon. We observed that at the site, the stump and everything was removed, so it was all ready to go with the new tree, which was nice to see. We've reached out to forestry to get a schedule of when they plan on planting the replacement trees, but we don't have a timeline yet. And then forestry plans to remove a similar number of pin oaks on Sedgwick Avenue every year for the foreseeable future as they kind of renew the existing trees there. And they'll keep doing that until they feel confident that all the remaining trees are healthy and are passing inspections.
Could I ask a question then?
Yeah.
So is this something that's endemic to pin oaks? Because there are pin oaks elsewhere in Van Cortlandt Park and in many other places. Or is it something, for some reason, that I guess is, excuse me, just transmitted among the trees on Sedgwick Avenue? Do we know?
I got the sense from speaking to Gregory about it, that it's common fungus that they're seeing in the city. that the pin oaks along the reservoir are constantly, victims of door strikes because they're very close to Sedgwick Avenue. And so that creates a vector for disease to get in, underneath the bark. And so, I got the sense that once it was kind of in the soil and in the vicinity, other trees were more likely to get it, and then they're all the same species of tree, and so something that impacts one pin oak would, a different type of tree might be able to resist it, but if the pin oaks are all getting them.
Right.
But in particular, the door strikes seem to be something that was really putting them at risk, which is why when they plant the new trees, they're planting them further back from the street, so that as they grow, they're much farther back from the curb, so they won't have the same problem.
That sounds like a smart solution.
Yes. And in 100 years, I'm sure the neighbors of Sedgwick Avenue will appreciate that.
Okay.
So the Seton Park Adult Fitness Area and Skate Park, there was supposed to be a ribbon cutting yesterday, but, or on the 21st, but it was just way too cold and icy, so Parks canceled it. But from Christina, but I assume they will be rescheduling it. I have not heard one way or the other from the Capitol team, but the kids have already started using the skate park. Food cart RFP, the concessions unit issued a request for proposals for the specialty mobile units. If you're interested in getting on the concession unit notification list or to learn more about concession opportunities in our parks, just reach out to the board office and we can connect you with the correct people. Let's see, at our last parks meeting, our last committee meeting, the Parks Department made a presentation on the new Vital Parks for All initiative, which stated that $169.5 million was being allocated to the Bronx. We asked if that was, well, how much of that was allocated to CB8. So they followed up with us, and Alberta Milan got back to us and let us know that we did not receive any of the money as it was allocated to communities that are part of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. However, in our district, Parks considers the following as part of the allocation of the program. Growing Greenways, which is part of the $133 million to the Tibbetts Brook daylighting. Growing Green Spaces, which is part of $11.2 million is from that program, which is for the 236th Street access easement to Tibbetts Brook, Putnam Greenway. And then a Let's Swim initiative of $19.95 million to Van Cortlandt Pool. And then for missing trees. So when Kat Barome was here last meeting, we asked her about 3 empty tree pits in the Fort Ford Park, where there used to be trees and now there, and then there were large boulders at the time of the meeting. She provided an update, which is that the 3 trees were scheduled to be planted, that 3 trees were scheduled to be planted as part of the restroom capital project in Fort Ford. But instead of planting new trees, they tried to move the 3 existing trees and then that killed them. But the good news is that the boulders, and so then the boulders have been placed on top of the tree pits to kind of make it more decorative. But the good news is that all of the tree pits have now been filled with trees and it's all very nicely planted up. And so if you haven't been in Fort Ford Park lately, you're in for a nice treat. It looks really good, right?
Yeah. The bathroom looks really nice.
Yeah, the basketball court looks really great, and big thank you to the Parks Department for all those improvements and to Council Member Sanchez. And then Wave Hill has a paid internship for high school students and a paid mentorship for a science researcher to guide high school students on a project. If you're interested in either of these things, reach out to the board office and we can connect you with Wave Hill, or you can go to Wave Hill's website and learn more information. All right, and with all of that, our first agenda item tonight is Tibbetts Brook Greenway. Effie, do you want to share a screen? Should I make you a co-host?
And first I'll just do introductions on my team and then we'll get into it. So good evening, my name is Effie Artizzoni. I'm the Bronx Borough Commissioner at DEP. Thank you to Bronx CB8's Parks Committee for having us present this evening. We're going to be providing a project overview and the final design for Tibbetts Brook. So in addition to DP, there's other agency stakeholders like Parks Department, and they're on as well. And I will start by introducing our team first. Rupesh Joshi is the Assistant Commissioner of the Office of Green Infrastructure and Cloudburst Design and Construction. Rupesh?
Hi.
Do you want to pass it on to the next person? Yeah.
I could actually introduce
Oh, good.
DP
Thank you.
team. Yeah, I know Marina Stern is here. FP, you're here. Amy Mosney, who's the project manager for this project. She's not here today. And then we've got Parks. I will hand over to Marit.
Good evening. I think we have Matt Donham here, who's our Director of Design and Construction. Sarah Donatich, I saw, who is stepping in as a project manager. She's has been the project hydrologist. And I think, I'm sorry if I miss anyone, please speak up and pass it on to Stephanie or John Paul, whoever's here, or Christina.
I'm here. Hey there.
Okay.
Stephanie Ehrlich, Van Cortlandt Park Administrator. And I guess I can speak for the Van Cortlandt Park team. John Paul Katusko, who is actively part of the Daylighting Project team, and Christina Taylor, who has been advocating for this project for more than 20 years.
We also have Margot from DOT. Margot, you just want to introduce yourself?
Hi there, this is Margot Grue from DOT, Assistant Director for Greenways.
And we have our team, Hazen and Sawyer, the engineers on this project, Dahlia Thompson.
Hello.
John.
Hello.
I think that's it from Hazen, right?
I think so.
Yep.
Anyone else we might have missed from Parks, DOT, DP? We do have a presentation. I could share my screen. Send request.
Yeah, I'm like on the wrong computer. There you go.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
I'll give a brief introduction and then I'll hand over to Dahlia Thompson for Hazen and Sawyer to get into the details of the design. But in terms of stakeholder engagement, we've had a number of community board meetings that we've attended, both the TAG meetings as well. Last time we met with Community Board 8 was in March. That was for when we were trying to obtain the ULURP for the NTA easement, which we have successfully managed to get. We got it in August. We did meet with the TAG team back in November, so saw some of you then. And at that meeting, we talked about going to the PDC. We did go to the PDC, had an interim submittal, which we'll talk about in upcoming slides. We do plan to go to the PDC very soon for the final submittal. But again, we discussed some of this back in November. And we're coming here to you before we go to the PDC, just to get you an update on where we are right now. We're right now, final design in terms of the greenway as well as the daylighting piece. We have reached final design. 100%, making some tweaks here and there, including for the PDC. We're now looking at the specifications. We've sent our specifications over to our legal team as well. I know Parks is looking at it. We'll get into it on the next slide, but there is a piece for the MTA that we're still working on. It was added late on during our discussions with them for the easement. They wanted us to make some changes. So we've had to take out, in terms of the design, track replacement work, and we had to get a new sub-consultant on board. That's at 60% design right now. We did go to MTA, submit the 60% design. They've given very minor comments, and now we're working towards the 90% design. At one point, we thought it might have to be a change order, but because we've been able to rush along with the design, we're going to put them all into one package so that we're going to be able to go for procurement of the contractor with one whole package. And we expect that to be, sometime this year, and the start of construction in early 2026. Again, in terms of the project outline, number of accomplishments, we will close on the CSX property in June of 2024. So that property is now part of the city and is Parks property. The ULUP, we managed to get that for the MTA easement in August of 2024. We're still working with the MTA in terms of the easement. We have a meeting with them coming soon in coming up with the approval of the easement document. There is an easement document that's a draft, but we've gone back and forth with them. And the next round of discussions with them is this Friday. Phase 1 lake restoration began in the summer.
Latest news.
Phase 1 lake restoration began in the summer of 2024. That's ongoing. I think we've stopped now because of the weather, but we'll be picking up again in the spring as well, and maybe some tree activities that's going to happen even before the spring. Like I mentioned, the final design for the daylighting and the greenway piece, we're there. We're complete, and just wrapping up the package. There is the piece for the MTA track replacement. 60% is complete and now working towards the 90%. We're hoping to finish that in the spring work so that it's all one package. And we will plan to go out to bid in the summer of 2025 and then start construction in spring of 2026. This is the agenda for our detailed presentation. I'll hand over to Dahlia. She'll go over our details of the design and some of the changes that have been made.
Thanks, everyone. As discussed, we'll talk through just a little bit give everyone an update on what's happening with the phase 1 work and in Hester and Perry's Mill Pond. And then we'll delve into updates on the design of the Tibbetts Brook daylighting project and focusing really on just what are the updates since we last presented the full design to you back about a year ago now, maybe a little bit more. So we'll talk through any of the design modifications we've made since our preliminary PDC submittal, and then also just touch on next steps and then give an update on a couple of the other activities that have been going on. So with that, if folks remember, we're doing right now a phase 1 for the Tibbetts Brook daylighting project, which is really in Hester and Perry's Mill Pond, doing some invasives removal within the lake edge and helping to restore some natural habitat there. Stephen Dubner Landscaping was awarded the contract, and they started last summer. And if you go to the next slide, they started with some water chestnut removal in the pond. Here's what it looked like before and after their initial round of removals. They'll be doing another round this coming summer, as well as getting into some of the shoreline removals, which were just their pesticide specialist needs to get some permitting completed. So we are planning on having them return early this spring. Actually, they'll do a couple targeted tree removals to start with for some invasive and failing trees. We are planting a number of trees as part of this project as well. And then they're going to install a pilot installation in an area, small section along the lake edge to where we're installing a solar panel and a pump that is going to pump water through a vegetated channel. This is something that BCQ had been involved in incorporating. And so that is going to happen this spring, as well as the invasives removed along the shoreline. And then now to the part of the updates for phase 2. We do, just to note some of the milestones, we have gotten final design coordinated with city DOT as well as state DOT. We've completed our final design. There's still items that are being tweaked, but nearly there. We're still continuing to coordinate with MTA, Metro North Railroad in particular, on the easement through their Bronx Rail Yard, and then planning on submitting final PDC shortly. So just to give an overview of the public portion of the project, which is really where the design changes that we want to present to the community board are located. There's in Van Cortlandt Park that we have the portion in Van Cortlandt Park where we're have a larger stream channel, and then the new portion of the CSX corridor that we'll delve into, and that's the new park. That'll be a new greenway. So next slide. Just to remind folks about the entry points. So, this is going to be an extension of Greenway is going to be an extension of the existing Putnam Greenway, which currently ends at Hester and Pierre's Mill Pond in Van Cortlandt Park, and then connects through paths over to Broadway as part of the Empire State Trail. We're picking up at that endpoint at the lake, and then there'll also be 2 entrances added at the parking lot for the Van Cortlandt Park golf course, as well as an access point from Van Cortlandt Park South, and then 239th Street, and then also 233rd Street, there'll be a ramp. Vervelen Place is an at-grade access, and 230th Street. And then if you go to the next slide, just want to point out that this is part of the Harlem River Putnam Greenway that is City DOT is currently in the planning stages for. They do have an upcoming workshop in the coming months. So if folks are more interested in that, do check that out. And so our Greenway is definitely a key portion of that larger planning project. So to go into more detail, we just want to give everyone an update on where things are with some of the updates since we last presented the design to Community Board 8. The first area we'll talk about is in Van Cortlandt Park at the start of the stream. We have updated the materials of the area we're calling the outfall, this the new the start of the stream. One thing that had been raised by the community is really seeking to have more of a prominent structure at that outfall and create a waterfall type of effect. So we've modified the design of the outfall to create a structure that allows for that to happen. That required modification of the side weir and outfall structures, and also changed some of the geometry, around the outfall itself. And we've changed the paving in that area from a portion of it had been bluestone to a consistent concrete paving alongside the new existing gravel path is going to be replaced with a diamond grid stone path that's ADA accessible. And so these will all integrate together and kind of seamlessly integrate the structure with the paths around it. So you can see on this cross section how we have our side weir on the left side, and then that has a pipe that's then connected to create this outfall structure at the start of the stream. and the paving just incorporates into the surface of those two structures with the diamond grid crushed stone path in the middle. And there'll also be some interpretive signage there, which you can also see on this rendering. And so this is the updated rendering reflecting that design of the structure. It's incorporating a Corinthian stone facing to that structure, as well as the railing has been modified for a consistent railing throughout. Just to note, I think some people have seen this, but we've incorporated the Riverside luminaires throughout our greenway design. Previously, I think when we first initiated it, we had them in the Van Cortlandt Park portion, but not in CSX. So we've incorporated them consistently throughout and also into the elevated greenway when we get to that elevated greenway within the CSX corridor. And also just to note, if you go back one slide, that everywhere on the pathway, we have a minimum of 11 feet clear zone. Where we have space, we have, I think there are some areas where we are up to 12 feet, but primarily 11 feet of clear space minimum. I think there had been a question about that. That elevated greenway design had always been a concrete path, but one thing that had been incorporated between preliminary and now our final design and had been approved in an interim submittal by PDC was an incorporation of a pattern to the concrete. We're alternating the float and room finish to kind of emulate a railroad track effect on that concrete path, and that'll help provide some unique elements to it while maintaining a kind of easy to maintain structure. So over on this area, you can see the boxed areas indicate where some items had been changed. The area on the right of Van Cortlandt Park South to the north of Van Cortlandt Park South, at one point we had steps located there. In addition to the ramp that you can see on the right side coming off, kind of off to the right, that ramp, the steps had been removed basically in order to maintain some trees and just keep with the ADA accessible path and not offer the step alternative to the path. So we're still able to ramp up to the internal path that connects to Van Cortlandt Park South. It doesn't change the access at this location. And then in the area where you see the number 4, that we have modified the paving in that area a little bit, and the railing, which you'll see on the upcoming slide. Likewise, where numbers 3 and 5 are, that's just indicating also that change in paving. Basically, in all of our entry areas, we've changed it to have the similar alternating brush and float finish to the concrete as a consistent aesthetic to the to all of the entry areas. Previously, I think we'd had incorporated pavers, but we're trying to have this more consistent design. So here's a rendering showing that overlook area. It is just reflecting the change in the material, the pattern concrete as opposed to the pavers, as well as the change in railing. In this slide, really just showing there's been some modifications to the underpass areas where you can see on this plan view, we are paving just a portion of the underpass area instead of the full area, and incorporating a bit more stone on the outside of those areas. If you go to the next slide, we are still able to, we're still intending to have those spaces in the underpass areas as potential art installation areas. And the change is really incorporating a fence, and we'll still have access beyond the fence, but trying to balance the concerns about potential safety in these underpasses and potential encampment opportunities. So it's that balance. And so there'll still be a gate through the fence, access for the area, and ability to use those spaces behind the fence as public art spaces as the community artists see fit. On this slide, once again, a change to the underpass area under West 231st Street, similar to what we just talked about. And then at Vervelen Place, just a change in, once again, in the paving pattern of that plaza area. And then at the 230th Street ramp, that's kind of the biggest change, where we've modified the location of the gate on the adjacent to the ramp on the maintenance access side to bring that, make the gate higher, because we're concerned about people kind of jumping over that gate and getting into this area under the ramp and in the back, into the Metro North area, which is, in this area that's a maintenance access, and there isn't through traffic with people. So we've shifted that back so that that higher gate is kind of flush with the top of the ramp, with the ramp in that location. And then also increase the height of the ramp, the fencing on the ramp, so that people are unable to hop over that ramp, get into this kind of behind the scenes area that's maintenance only. And it's really just concern for safety in these areas. Also on the kind of the top side, the building that is at the corner of 230th Street and our property is the building goes up to their property line. So, we also have concerns about people, from the ramp getting very close to that building and potentially kind of getting, easily able to tag that area. So just trying to address that concern. So if we go to the next slide, you can see kind of the fencing relative to that ramp. We're also installing fencing below the ramp as well, so that we're trying to keep people, if they even got into that area, from then also being able to get under the ramp where they're really not visible, and setting up encampments under there. So that's kind of the summary of most of our design updates. Some of the other items that have been going on. We completed the CSX acquisition back in June of 2024. So congratulations to everyone, and your support in this process has been great. And also have completed the environmental review. The negative declaration was declared in February 2024. And we've also gone through the ULURP for the MTA property to get our easement through the MTA property. And that has all been completed. And then I think, as Deb had noted, we did receive an EFC grant. So that was very exciting, and that will help offset the cost for this project. So with that, if there are any questions.
I guess I will start with the committee. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Yeah, Bob.
It sounds as though the discussion with the MTA has been going well. I believe you said you've got approval up to 60% design, if I heard that correctly. And the next step is the 90% design. You're in discussion with the MTA right now. Are you optimistic that it's going to continue to go smoothly?
Hiccups here and there. There's two pieces. There's the easement piece that we're working on through our legal team, because we need to get our pipe through their property, and that discussion's ongoing. We had stopped for a while, but we've picked up again. There's a draft document about what the easement would look like, but, they've placed some stringent constraints on us that we're working with them on. So there's that piece, the easement itself. In terms of the design, yes, we've finished 60% design. We sent it over to MTA, we'd even given them 30%, had comments. The comments on the 60% were pretty minor. So I think we're good in terms of the design for the track replacement piece. And yes, we're trying to go back to them to submit the 90%, and we would need to give them the 100%. So the track replacement seems to be going pretty well. It takes some time for MTA to give us their comments back. The more challenging piece right now is the easement document. And we're hoping to see if we can come around to agreements on the various issues.
Okay, and I have another question.
There's a follow-up question on that one. Do
Oh,
you?
no, go ahead.
On that one, we're talking about 230th to the river, but just for the pipe, right? That's the easement.
Correct, just for the pipe.
And then the track replacement, where is the track being replaced?
So where our pipe goes through, right? Next to it, adjacent to that area, there's existing tracks. And initially we had said we would put the pipe through their property and the pipe would be sticking up. They were okay with it at first, but then they had some change in some of the engineers that were involved. And then they said, oh, that's not going to be okay because we have a pipe that's sticking up and it's going to be issues with them in terms of their mobility. So they have said that we would need to, where their tracks are, we would need to take the tracks out, put some soil in as fill so that it was level with our pipe, and then put the tracks back in. So the tracks are mostly adjacent to where our pipe is going to be, except where it makes a 90-degree turn. Those tracks we were needing to replace anyway, because we would have to take their tracks out, put our pipe in, and then put the tracks where it was going to be making a cross to the regulator area.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So I understand about the pipe. Now, with regard to the greenway itself, you go only as far as 230th Street, is that correct?
Correct.
So from 230th Street down to the river, is that the Harlem River Greenway that's going to have to deal with that space, or how does it go south of 230th Street? Or because there is eventually supposed to be a connection to a Harlem River Greenway, as I understand it, how is that connection to be made between the Putnam extension and the Harlem River Greenway?
Yeah, as part of the Tibbetts Brook, we with the greenway, we stop at 230th Street. And then, for the MTA property, we can't carry a daylighted stream, so it's a underground pipe. And in terms of the greenway itself, we've stopped there. And I know, there are discussions going on potentially for extension of the greenway. And I know MTA has, not fully supported that, but that's a separate discussion.
And just to note, and Margot, I guess, could speak to this as well, but at 230th Street, they will be considering where it is currently ending with our project as part of the, full Harlem River Greenway planning that, where it goes from there. So, we have a ramp back up to 230th Street at the end of the Greenway. And then, and then also a connection from Vervelen Place. And so at those areas are kind of the opportunities where it can connect into other, the next phase of the Greenway.
Okay, thank you. That was exactly my question.
So just to repeat what you just said then, so right now there's no connection at Vervelen, but it's at grade. So in theory, there could be a connection at Vervelen. Is that what you meant?
Well, there's my understanding is that there's some Greenway bike route on Broadway, right? So, it's a short block you can get, from Verveelen to Broadway, and then also at 230th Street, which is also, a short block over to Broadway or to another route that may be explored further as part of the Harlem River Greenway project.
So the entrances then, just to reiterate, are Van Cortlandt Park outside of the park, are Van Cortlandt Park South, 239th, 233rd, Verveelen, and 230th?
Yeah.
Okay. Bob, do you have any more questions?
No, that's it, thank you.
Anybody else, questions?
They've been answered.
David Gelman.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I can't seem to get my camera working. A couple of things, three things, but the first two are fairly easy. When you talk about the pavement finish, you're talking about that railroad appearance and whatnot. It is just appearance. It's not going to be a rumble strip, right?
Correct. No,
Good,
no rumble
good.
strip, just, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a cosmetic. That sounds very nice. There was a notation about the Jerome Park Reservoir. Is that like an overflow coming down from the reservoir?
There is currently there's a blow-off connection from the Jerome Park Reservoir that connects into the Broadway sewer. This is for operational control of the reservoir if they need to draw down the reservoir. And right now they have the ability to do that. They have an agreement with the BWSO. They do that during dry weather, not during wet weather. But it also serves as like an emergency spillway, right? If there was some kind of emergency.
Sort of a relief valve?
Yes, but primarily what they use it to do is draw down one side if they need some extra, if it's starting to fill up, they'll draw down one side if necessary. And they do that, at a low rate, very low rate, right now into the sewer. We are installing a manhole, kind of like a large manhole, essentially, that it has an overflow weir that allows it to spill primarily now into the stream. This is treated, fresh water. But anyway, it's drinking water that is able to go into our stream instead of going into the sewer system. Which then goes into the treatment plant and gets treated, it's treating clean water. So this will only happen once again during dry weather, that they'll be allowed to release into our stream. Since we have some additional capacity during dry weather, and so it will give them the ability to draw down the reservoir quicker and give them more operational controls. And also save sending clean water to the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, that makes sense. And finally, the PDC, the Public Design Commission, had a couple of strong objections. How have you addressed them directly?
So the design updates that I was presenting, these are all ones that we had presented to PDC during, we had 2 interim submissions, one last year and then one just last month. And they've approved those changes. And so that's why we're proceeding to final.
Okay, I wasn't aware of the last month's part. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Karen Argenti, let me unmute you.
Okay. So I don't understand what the ramp looks like at 230th Street. It's pretty steep. I thought it was going to be ended there and we were just going to Verveelen.
There was a desire to have both a ramp at 230th Street as well as the Verveelen entrance, because Verveelen only allows for access to the west towards Broadway, but adding, having the ramp up to 230th Street allows for both east and west access on 230th
So
Street.
what does the ramp look like?
It is, I don't think we.
Does it go in like one and then, I mean, if it's going to be,
It's a straight section.
it's straight down? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's less than half, it's less than 5% slope. It is not steep enough that it requires a handrail. So it meets ADA accessibility requirements, and it's just very long, right? So
how much space does it take?
It's gonna take almost the whole length of that adjacent mall property. So the bottom of the ramp is
To
basically,
Verveelen, from there to
it's
Verveelen.
almost, it's a few, a hand, it's set back a little bit from the corner of that building at Verveelen, but it's almost the whole way there.
It sounds a little dangerous.
It is less than, it is going to be less than 5% for the whole thing. It is not, it sounds steep, but it's actually, it's gonna be more gentle. It's about the same as it'll be a little bit more gentle than the roadway one ramp, because also we're starting off at a higher elevation than existing grade. So we're actually raising the grade in the air at the bottom of the Verveelen area by about 5 feet. So.
And is that going to be open all the time?
I think that is something that is still in discussion with Parks in terms of the hours, but that's for the CSX corridor overall.
Okay.
Any other questions, Karen?
Well, I'm just concerned that, those e-bikes are pretty heavy. And it could be a little bit of a problem. Unless they're not allowed on there.
E-bikes are not allowed on the Greenway.
Okay. But regular bikes are.
Regular bikes are.
Okay. No,
Are we
thanks.
sure that, my understanding from last summer, not that I agree with this, I'm just stating something, that I thought that Mayor Adams had made greenways accessible to e-bikes. Is that not true? Stephanie, you've got a greenway. Is that not true? You got a greenway in your pocket?
It's pretty not true, right? It's a good point.
That's right. There is a current, pilot project,
Yeah.
which allows e-bikes, supposed to be at the speed of a regular bike on greenways.
So that pilot
So you
is
see,
still
that's a problem with the big steep hill. Okay.
Just one second.
What's the problem?
Karen, are you done with your comment?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, Laura, you want to talk about the e-bikes?
Regarding on this,
Yeah.
I read that the pilot program was extended to May 31st, 2025.
Okay.
It was supposed to end May 31st, 2024. And there's no determination yet because they're still getting data and feedback from the parks and citizens.
Okay,
But it's still a pilot. It's not something that's been decided yet.
right, okay. And then, David, did you raise your hand because you wanted to speak on the e-bike issue, or did you have
Yes,
something else?
very quickly. I think it'll
Yeah.
probably end up relating to the recent filing about registering e-bikes as opposed to pedal assist. Like the city bikes are pedal or pedal assist, but they're not fully electric. I think pedal assist will be allowed. I hope that full e-bikes are not. And I think that's part of the legislation that's recently been raised in city council. I'll bet you Chauncey has a comment on it.
David, are you referring to the legislation about licensing e-bikes, or is there additional legislation about?
It's licensing and all that, but the licensing is going to be for the full electric, which is throttle controlled, as opposed to the pedal assist.
Okay,
It's all e-bikes.
that's not how I read the,
It's all e-bikes.
yeah, Laura
But we'll
also.
discuss that under new
We'll
business.
discuss that under new business, but thank you for raising it, and we'll talk about it. Chauncey, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, I just, excited to hear about the 230th access. Obviously, we're always trying to get access to the waterfront. As part of this, obviously, it's not part of this specific project, but obviously we do want to connect the Putnam and Tibbetts to the Harlem River waterfront. But, positive to hear about the 230th connection as the, side street to Broadway was not accessible to both sides of the, of both east and west. So I think this is exciting. I do think it would be great, as Karen was sharing, just to know a little bit more about the ramp. I assume it's going to have a wall or something, whether or not a handrail, but as it is a fairly high height to 230th Street. So I understand that the ramp needs to get long, but I also just curious just to see how the ramp is going to be designed, similar to Karen, not with fear about it, but just to get a better sense of it. So no, but excited to hear about those changes.
The ramp will have a 6-foot high steel picket fence along either side of it. As noted, there's some safety concerns there, but no handrail, as the slope is low enough that it won't require a handrail.
Okay, great.
And I think people are familiar with Concrete Plant Park, and there's ramps coming down from both the Bruckner and I'm forgetting this cross street on the other side. Similar type of ramp down, I would say. It's maybe a little bit, it's a little different geometry wise, but if you want to visualize a ramp coming down from a end street, I'd say those are similar.
Yeah, any other questions? Chauncey?
No,
Then-
no. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Camelia?
Yes, thank you. I mean, thank you again, team, for coming back and kind of updating the community. It's great to see progress from one meeting to another. It could be that it's still early for me to ask the same questions that I'm obsessed with on this project. One is the visuals. I mean, it's just terrible. All those property owners, the commercial property owners, are cleaning up their walls. I think at least once every 2 or 3 months, it gets wrapped in graffiti almost instantly. So I was just wondering if throughout the construction phases, you guys will kind of take charge of that as well. And second, very important also in the long run, is placement of trash cans and servicing the trash cans, meaning emptying them, obviously, and whether you consider this already and whether there's budget allocated to it, because the project will be very successful in terms of design and it's so innovative and everything, but the whole maintenance part of it will definitely add costs. And I wonder kind of in whose budget those will go. Will it be Parks, Van Cortlandt Alliance, or sort of how it will go? But in terms of placement, I think of the trash cans, I think this will be an important matter to consider. If you can give more information on these two things, graffiti and trash cans.
So I guess I'll take the trash cans first. We have trash cans located at all of the entrances to the project. So we have where we have like plaza entrances. So we have them at Vervelen, at West 239th Street, and then at both entrances from the parking lot in Van Cortlandt Park. We don't really have gathering spaces really otherwise within the corridor, but there are trash cans located where there are benches and space in those locations. And Parks is planning on maintaining this portion of the park as well, and so that would be something that they would coordinate for trash removal, but those are in fairly easy to access locations as well. From a graffiti standpoint, I mean, those are private properties, but we are trying to do what we can to try and make it harder to access those walls. So we do have vegetation planned where we can to have kind of columnar trees and shrubs in between the greenway and the big wall spaces that are kind of most easy to tag up right now. And that is something that we're considering. I don't know that it could get, so we're doing what we can to try and make that less attractive.
Thank you, Dolly. A couple of follow-up questions. Stephanie Ehrlich, can you, do you know if Van Cortlandt Park Alliance is gonna be responsible for maintaining the greenway, or will it be considered kind of a district park below Van Cortlandt Park South?
Well, Van Cortlandt Park Alliance isn't responsible for maintaining Van Cortlandt Park, so, so no, it's NYC Parks.
Or else be responsible for going outside.
Yeah, so no, I mean, this is New York City Parks jurisdiction, and getting a sense of how it's going to be maintained is still up, is something that's being discussed.
Okay. And then the second question I had was just about restrooms. I think during the original design discussion, the thought was that Bailey Playground would be kind of the closest restroom. Are there any restrooms that are part of the greenway? Or will there be wayfaring signs to direct people to Bailey Playground where there is a restroom?
There are, right now, I don't think we actually have now that you mention it, I'm not sure that we have a sign specifically to Bailey Playground. We have a sign at the ramp for 238 3rd Street, to direct them towards that. But there isn't to the playground, and obviously there is also a restroom at Van Cortlandt Park at the lake. But we don't have space to install any restroom facilities within the corridor.
Right. Can we request or at least put it on your list that it would be helpful to have some sort of wayfaring to direct folks to Bailey Playground? Because that's a lot of blocks until you get to the lake.
Yeah.
Especially if you got kids or something that, I mean, people may not realize it's a block away.
Yeah. That's something we can, I think we can look at adding that in.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about the park itself or the Greenway? I guess my other questions are really just about, how long do you expect the construction will take? And then B, what are the next steps with the PDC?
We're anticipating a 3-year construction contract.
Okay.
3 year till substantial completion, another year for final completion. Right?
Yeah, the contractor will have a year of maintenance guarantee and punch list items.
So what year is that? Then it's starting in 2026?
2026, and yeah, sorry.
2026, we're starting, before summer 2026. And then substantial completion will be 2029. That's when, we'll have the daylighted spring in operation as well. And then the contractor will be wrapping up for the next year, punch list items, and some minor stuff. So 3 years till substantial completion, 4 years till final completion. And then with the PDC, we're going to them on Friday, right? That's the submittal deadline.
Yeah, we're planning on submitting the final package on Friday. But as noted, we have gone through 2 interim submissions, so nothing that we're submitting is changed from anything that's been approved through those interim submissions. So we're hoping that all goes smoothly.
Okay, and then you don't need anything from us for that, correct?
We have the preliminary approval, so I think we're okay. But obviously, if you wanted to write another letter, that would always be.
Well, we have the resolution too.
We have the resolution in support of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so just to make sure I understand, so the punch list items will happen in 2030, but when does the public actually get to go in? Will they be working on punch list items and people are still able to access it, or is it not until everything is completely final completion?
I think it's a good question. At substantial completion, we should be able to open it up.
Right, I think it would just depend, presuming nothing major on the punch list that would affect public safety in the
right,
or while they're using it.
Okay. Well, if that's all the questions, I want to give people a pause because it's been a long time coming to get to this process and to this moment. But here we are. So thank you all so much for coming and joining us tonight. Thank you for the detailed presentation, and thank you for all your work all these years on this project. I mean, it's a monumental project. It's the environmental impacts of it are going to be huge and felt for a long time. And hopefully it will also be a really educational opportunity for our youth to learn about Tibbetts Brook and water and daylighting and wetlands and conservation right here in the Bronx. So thank you for all of you for making that happen. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and thank you for your support, because it's goes a long way in, you know, the ULURP process and all these various aspects. You know, even we were recently at DEC for a joint permit application, and you know they were in full support as well. So can't wait to start wrap up the design and bid this out and then start construction.
Right. You can start worrying about the problems that are actually happening. Karen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Deb. I think this is terrific. Thank you all very much. It was a long, drawn-out affair. And we appreciate every single sweating bullets that you contributed to it. And I know it's still going on because the MTAs, the MTA. And I think Eric is on. I don't know if he wants to say anything. Okay.
Yeah, Council.
Member.
Yeah, Councilmember Dinowitz, the floor is yours if you like it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I think all of you know, I always say when I was first elected on my special election, that first call with Mayor de Blasio was, I said two things, and one of them was the daylighting of Tibbetts Brook. So I could not be more thrilled to really see the plans, really seeing this coming to fruition, shovels in the ground next year. I mean, this is like a dream come true for me. If it's like that for me, the thing about the people on who've been advocating for this for years and years, before I was even, before Zoom existed, before I was on these calls. So, also thank you to those of you who've been really champions of this for years and years before it was even a blip on so many of our radars.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so if there's no other remarks, then I will let all the folks who are here for the presentation get on with your evening and your families and your lives. I would like to, we have a agenda where we would be discussing the fiscal year 27 capital budget priorities. Since Councilmember Dinowitz wanted to present on his funding for a mural project in the community, I would like to propose that he goes now, just to be respectful of his time, and then we'll just a quick modification of the agenda, and then we'll move on back to our budget priorities. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you all. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Councilmember Dinowitz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the change in the agenda. I think everyone on this call, everyone on the community board knows how seriously I take the beautification of our neighborhood. Whether it's brand new garbage cans that we're getting throughout the district, over $250,000 for cleanup services throughout the district, including at Van Cortlandt Park, including our supplemental ACE services that we provide throughout the district, throughout the entire district, and of course, graffiti removal. And particularly after October 7th, we saw what I think is an uptick in graffiti that was, I think, not just ugly and unsightly, but harmful to the community. And so, in looking at, our budget and how we want to beautify the neighborhood, I want to present to you tonight that, I've allocated money to be used for the purpose of a mural or two in our community. And I want to point out Laura Levine Pinedo from KRVC is on the call. So we've allocated funding to do beautification in the district, murals in the district. And what we're looking at is the footbridge over Henrickson Parkway at 235th Street. And you know, my office has gotten a lot of complaints of graffiti in that particular location. And so, you know, in talking to Lauren, I also spoke with Farah about this. So, you know, what if we hired a muralist, commissioned a muralist to paint something beautiful over there, with both the intention of deterring vandals from, you know, from ruining that footbridge, and also beautifying that walk for so many people who take the footbridge. And year after year, I know I've gotten complaints not just of graffiti, but how ugly it is. We need to repaint this part. It's just a drab walk over the highway. And so we are working together to beautify that area in the district. And so we've been speaking with Laura Levine Pinedo from KRVC. She actually commissioned a beautiful mural, if you've ever seen it, out 236th and Riverdale Avenue, outside the hair studio across from her office, with the help of the Audubon Society. So anyone who drives or walks down or takes the bus down that street sees these beautiful birds. You know, when I was driving down and walked down the street, I think it's such a great addition to the community. And so I just wanted to, you know, let you know that we're doing this. We want to start receiving community feedback. Laura already spoke to an artist, and there's a few general ideas of what this could look like. And, you know, ultimately we want community input and for the community to participate in helping to paint over the footbridge as you walk over, because it is a you know, a big space, and it's a great way for the community to be involved in beautifying our neighborhood. I see David's hand up, but I want to do two things before I call on people. One, I just want to show a few of some of the thoughts that we're having. And I also want to give Laura the opportunity to share some words, as she's, you know, a partner in this endeavor. May I? I'd like to share my screen.
Yeah, thinking
Although
about that.
it's
Let's see here.
giving me a bit of a hard
All right.
time do
You're a
it.
co-host. Now you should be able
No,
to.
I'm the co-host.
Yeah.
Let's see. Give me a sec, because it's having
Is reinstalling software? Should I make Laura a co-host for a minute?
no. I mean, you can. You can do it. Okay,
I don't have it on my screen, so Eric, you're the co-host.
No, if you just give me a moment. I didn't allow permissions. That's why it was giving me, it's telling me I have to quit and reopen. So while I'm quitting and reopening, and Laura, if you just want to say a few words about your role in this partnership, I'm going to hop on and share just a few of the very preliminary designs.
Sounds great. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Levine Pinedo. I'm the Executive Director of KRVC, which is Kingsbridge Riverdale Van Cortlandt Development Corporation. We are super excited to partner with Councilmember Dinowitz in bringing this mural to our community. Overall, we do have, by June 2025, we are looking to complete 3 different murals in our community, 2 with the council member and 1 with New York City Small Business Services. So it's very exciting. We got great feedback on our bird mural on 236th Street. People just absolutely rave about it. And so Councilmember Dinowitz came to us and said, would we partner? And we were very excited. So he will be showing you some mock-ups at the Bronx muralist. It's very important for me to keep all the art and everything, all the resources here in the Bronx. So I have commissioned a Bronx muralist. His name is Antonio, to lead this project. And it is open for, you know, discussion. It's not final. And, you know, I'm very much into providing, like, you know, personalized murals. So, you know, I would love, you know, we open the floor for anyone to provide feedback or, you know, their opinion. So.
Yeah. So I'm gonna share the screen now that my computer will let me. So you know, again, obviously, a thing across an entire footbridge is not going to be like a single square thing. Again, it's just to get some ideas of, you know, what we might have going across as people walk over the footbridge, like this. And by the way, these are what we have at some schools. These are more of the geometric designs That's at PS7, and that's 141. This is actually Public Color, which is a different organization, but they have more of the geometric, colorful, simple designs. So, you know, like I said, very quickly, just some of the thoughts to beautify that footbridge area and deter the graffiti that my office gets so many complaints about. I'm gonna stop sharing, and Madam Chair, I'm not in charge of the meeting. I don't know if you want to call on anyone who may have a question or a comment at this point.
Anybody in the committee?
Yes.
David, or David?
No, I'm Bob tonight.
Sorry, Bob.
Right, okay. And I don't know whether this question is for you, Councilman, or for Laura, but exactly where on the footbridge are we talking about? Are we talking about on the steps, for example, or are we talking about the support structure on the east and west side of the parkway?
Well, what I envision is as you walk over the footbridge, so like, you know, anything there that we can beautify there. So like kind of, I guess it's about at your waist maybe down. Any pedestrian who walks over.
Okay, so, right, so on the structure itself as you're going over it. Okay. Mhm.
And, any other follow-up question, Bob?
No.
Laura, you said that there were 3 or 4 other places you were, what other locations are you thinking of for murals?
So I will let Councilmember Dinowitz, because we're working on that other project, if he would like to say where we're thinking for that. The other mural is with New York City SBS. I am thinking along the Bailey Avenue corridor between 238th and 234th. Yeah, so separate note, we're the only Bronx organization to receive this grant from SBS for merchant organizing, but so it's a great thing. So I really want to beautify that area. But moving back to this, council member.
So there's funding for 3 murals. First is over the footbridge. The second is actually in CB7 on Mosholu Parkway, underneath the Jerome Avenue, that subway station. I mean, it's anyone who's driven or walked there knows why. And then the third, we're still looking for a third location that is, you know, very public. Public property. And we have discussed this with DOT already, by the way. This isn't us coming in with paint cans. This is part of their Arterventions program. We're still like scouting out areas for a public space that's well-traveled and would benefit, and where the community would benefit from this.
Does it need to be, so far all the places you've mentioned are government owned, they're not private spaces. I assume that's part of the criteria for selecting a location?
We're looking at, I mean, there are other avenues to get on businesses, no doubt. But in terms of the funding that I'm allocating, right now we're looking at the public spaces.
I have a suggestion of location, actually.
Yeah, also,
Yeah.
let me just one, I'll give one and then you can give one. I was thinking of in Van Cortlandt Park, as you're entering, you know, you go under the Deegan there, that underpass is always it could use some sprucing up. It's the entrance to the southern entrance to the park. That was the first thing in my mind.
And just to be, before Johanna adds on, just to be clear about the funding, it does, one of the criteria is also, it is a place where a cleanup needs to occur. So it has to be a place where there is graffiti, there is something there that is, requiring the cleanup.
Okay, did you have
Okay, well, I actually had reached out prior to Farah regarding a possible mural at 5900 Riverdale Avenue. The reason why, because North Riverdale is such a quiet area, and I think we could actually bring more business, more foot traffic to that area to by North Riverdale.
What was the location?
5900 Riverdale Avenue.
Is that a private business?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then we.
Oh, and welcome to the board, Miss Edmondson.
Anything, I'll call on David unless you have something else you wanted to add.
About this? No, just Dave. I'll take David's question.
Uh, thank you. First off, I just want to say, I think that those birds on 236 are brilliant. Just simply, I mean, literally and figuratively. The colors are brilliant, but the design is just lovely. But frankly, I'm still a little confused, even with your answer to Bob. The footbridge, I mean, the base is stone, so I don't think you're talking about that. Are you talking about like bolting artwork to the fence of the?
Painting it on, taking a paintbrush, just like there's nothing. So
But
for
it's a
instance, I think
fence.
236 is a good example. There's nothing bolted on there. They drew a stencil of what it would look like, then they painted it. And that's kind of what we're looking at when, again, to be very clear, we're in like the early stage of this. I think I met with Farah last week about this. And that's why this was like the first committee meeting that that made sense to present at. And we're certainly taking community feedback at this point because we want it to be Bronx space. We want it to beautify the neighborhood. We want it to be something that we can all take part in. But
No, Eric,
there's nothing bolted on. It's not like a canvas. It's taking a paintbrush and painting.
no, I understand, and the samples you gave are lovely. I just still don't understand because it's almost a chain link fence on the overpass. So
It is
what
a
are you
chain link.
painting?
When you're waist down, I know there's no bike path over the footbridge, so you can't ride your bike over
No,
it.
I've walked it many times,
I'm kidding.
and I'm looking
kidding.
at the Google right now.
Yeah, I can pull up the Google. But when it's like your waist down, the lower part of the footbridge is like a canvas. It's like an open canvas, which is by the way why we've gotten so much graffiti there, because it's just someone goes there, it's a blank canvas.
Yeah, no, forgive me. Now looking at the Google Maps, I always thought it was down around your ankles, the steel work, but now I see there's a person there and the steel goes up to almost your waist. Now I understand. Forgive me.
In fact, if you give me 2 seconds, my ledge director, Adam, who's on the call, just texted this picture to me. Thank you, Adam. So this is the perfect, I should have had this up actually first. Thank you, Adam. You see this place, you can actually see even in the Google photo from this year, there's a little graffiti there. The paint is chipped. And look, we got kids, walking over like every day from school, people going to and from each side of the highway. Like this is really a perfect spot to do this art. And it would be, as Adam circled here, this lower part. Oh, but like up through, through the footbridge, not just one little tiny section. That's the goal.
Yeah, no, I understand better now. I didn't realize that the steel was that tall.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
error.
I just wanted to add too, we are commissioning a muralist. However, we want it to be very hands-on with local students as well. The bird mural, Riverdale Country School, those students basically painted that mural with him. So we definitely want to do the same for this. I was a little concerned with the bird mural when Nikki Enright was painting it. I said, this is going to get tagged next week. Like, what are we going to do? It's going to get tagged. He goes, trust me, street artists and graffitis, they have such respect for murals that they really rarely tag it. And he, knock on wood, was right so far. So
yeah,
it's definitely something in the art world that's appreciated.
Yeah.
No, I think your samples are terrific. I think the concept is terrific. I just didn't visualize the space well enough. That's all. Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you, David.
Any other
So-
comments or questions about this topic?
Yeah, Joanna.
Question, now again, the mural that was done, on South Riverdale with the birds looked amazing. It's just so attractive and it brings so much in, it invites actually, people to come to that area even more. Now, my question to you is who summons the artist? And what is the budget per mural?
Laura, I'll kick that over to you.
Okay, great. So I select the artist, and I'm looking at an artist, a Bronx artist by the name of Antonio. He's amazing. He's a DOE employee. He does murals all over the school systems here in the city. He's just really, really great. I've decided to go with him. And the budget for these three potential murals from Councilmember Dinowitz is $30,000.
Per mural.
Total.
No, for all three projects, but that tunnel over by Montchelou Parkway will take the majority of it, I believe, because that is a very big space.
So there's nothing left for the third mural.
There is left, but it's going to be much, you know, it's for the three murals collectively will be $30,000.
Okay, so the first mural for the bridge is gonna be about, what was the cost again? It says it's gonna take most of it. So it's gonna
Not,
be
you know, not most of it, but it's just a larger, it's a tunnel, you know, it's a 3-piece tunnel. So, you know, there's no numbers been thrown around yet, but collectively 3 murals will be completed for this project for $30,000.
Yeah, that's the one that's on Montchelou Parkway in Jerome is mural number 2. And then this one over on Henry Hudson Parkway is mural number 1, and then they have to pick site 3. But it probably will be smaller is what I'm understanding, or like a simpler site.
Not necessarily, but that is the budget that we're working with.
Yeah, I think like the main cost, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, the main cost is like commissioning the artist, like the actual paint itself doesn't, you know, isn't like a ton of money. And, you know, the goal again being to get some community partners. So like Laura mentioned the school, for example, you know, a bunch of kids painting. So, you know, we're not paying like a paint crew thousands and thousands of dollars to do the work. It's real, you know, it's commissioning the artist. And I mean, there are costs to paint, obviously, but that's not.
And also we'll need a hydraulic lift. I mean, that's, you know, he has to get up there and that's costly and, you know, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time for these murals. That bird mural took like 10 days to do. You know, so it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
All right, Ed Green, you have the last question.
I'll be real quick. So just as food for thought, 230 First Street between Broadway and Bailey Avenue, right where all the hustle and bustle is by the bus stops and across from the Food Universe, you got the Deegan Highway and you got the sort of underpass. Those walls are regularly graffitied all the time. They're an eyesore, and that's a major hub. And I just throwing that out there as a suggestion because it's kind of ugly with the graffiti they put there, and it would be, I think, a good place to put something cheery up there for the neighborhood to look at rather than a bunch of scrolled stuff on the wall. That's it.
I love that.
I think that's a great spot. I will just flag, like, literally depending on like how far down you go or the side of the street, it may not be my district. So like, let's definitely talk details because I love the idea. And I just so everyone here knows, a couple weeks ago I did a ride along with like borough-based NYPD for just some of like the parking and traffic stuff in the district. And one of the areas I brought them to was 231st Street. It's like the main artery of CB8 of the, you know, that's where all the buses and the trains go, to address those cars and trucks parking in the bus stop. And we've had MTA come by from time to time to clean up there. We've gotten complaints of the food vendors. So like, Ed, just to let you know, 100% agree with you on making sure that 231st Street Broadway area is really cleaned up, is really welcoming to people coming into the neighborhood, and really like a nice way to start your workday. And as people come home from work, a nice way to end your workday. So 100% on board with that idea of that area. And we can talk further about like I said, how far down, what side of the street, all that stuff. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Ed.
And just to confirm, you said 231st and Bailey, yes?
231st between Broadway and Bailey. It's really across the street from the Food Universe, but you could look at both sides of the street. But I see the graffiti on the other side of the street where the bank used to be over there.
Right. Right by the Dale Diner, if you keep walking
Correct.
towards, by Albany Crescent. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, wait, yeah, I'll give Camelia the last word and then that's it.
Thank you, thank you. Councilmember, it's also to suggest, if not in this round, maybe in a future round of this type of project, Spite and Dyeville, we are many buildings, high density, and we only have this little commercial strip at Knowles Crescent, and there is a perfect wall there on the left side of the former Chase branch that closed, and there are two other, I think, spaces that are still closed. Looks quite desolate, actually. So that would be a perfect location that always gets tagged. It's a free wall. It's also not super large, so it wouldn't be like it. So it would be something that you could easily kind of squeeze in, sort of say. So please consider this also for Spite and Dyeville. And Laura, just to mention to you, I don't know how to say the precise funding stream you're using for this, but if you're using a single artist for 3 projects at $30,000, just make sure that you double check that, because over $20,000 on with some agencies, you require a request for proposals, and they would probably not necessarily, you see what I'm saying? You need to show multiple proposals and all that to justify paying a single artist $30,000. And Laura, also a plug to you, of course, for the Knowles Crescent strip, if not this round, sometime in the future, because you have to really use a little bit of sort of sprucing up. And we only have three three-peats, yes, and then a single tree guard. It really looks kind of like you're missing a tooth, sort of say. So just wanted to mention again the Spite and Dyeville and Knowles Crescent strip. Thank you.
That's a great idea too, Camelia. Thank you so much. I know a lot of Spite and Dyeville residents are looking for something for beautification and a mural. I think that's great. I think there's also ways of, bringing in muralist number 1, muralist number 2, muralist number 3 for these city contracts. And we do have a very broad network of various muralists. So we will definitely check up on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I know if there's 2 people who know about businesses and contracts,
Oh,
it's Camelia and Laura.
And maybe the Step Street right behind Knowles.
Yeah. So for
That wall.
Yeah, and just in general, just so that I started out saying, if there's spots in the community, and I'm writing that down, but just in general, like if there's spots in the community that has graffiti, like certainly call my office. Like there's a reason I allocate so much funding to the cleanup crews. It's so that they can go out, and most people know that when they call my office complaining about in certain locations graffiti or garbage, we get it cleaned up typically within 24 hours. So I mean, I think they said not today, it's too cold. I think we got an email about that. So I'm just trying to step streets at Knowles. There was one other thing I wanted to mention off topic of this, but on topic for what was the meeting. To make sure you guys know, you spoke about the legislation 606, Priscilla's law, about licensing the electric scooters. I'm on the bill. I'm an early co-sponsor. I'm a big proponent of this bill. It's, if someone's doing something illegal, we should have the means to identify that person. And for everyone else, like, you want to deliver groceries, you want to go downtown, go wherever on your e-bike, like, who cares? Like, I love micromobility. I think expanding options for mobility in New York City is great. It happens when these handful of people make life dangerous for other people, and we have no way of identifying them. And so that's why I am sponsoring this piece of legislation to hold accountable those bad actors.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay.
We're discussing that on the new business.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard you, or you. I did hear someone talk about it.
It's very helpful. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if that's it, then we will, so I guess the final note is, if you have any suggestions, if anybody has any suggestions of locations, they should contact the board office or contact Councilmember Dinowitz's office. With
Yeah, and we'll be sending out some, like I said, some design ideas, soliciting feedback from all of you. Really important you make your voices heard. And just once again, Madam Chair, I want to thank you, Laura, of course, and Adam Starpoli from my staff, who's on the call, who's really like a whiz at this, at the budget stuff. So thank you, everyone.
All right, yeah, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
All right, so now we will move on to the budget priorities process. For tonight, I would like to assemble a list of the project ideas that we would like to consider. And then basically come back in February and assemble our top 10 capital and expense, and then in March, whittle them down to 5 capital and 5 expense and put them in order. That's kind of the master plan here. So in advance, I sent out, we'll share screen. I sent out a list of, and Joanna, if you, there's a packet.
Oh, yeah.
Front
Yep.
of,
Here you go.
see here. So here are, these were our budget priorities for last year. Did you have one of those? Everybody's got one of those?
I think I took one. If you need it, I will find it.
Gotta get 2 extra.
I have
And then
extra.
Laura, there should be a list down there that's just kind of all of the things we considered. I mean, as David will tell you.
Previous, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
As David will tell you, we can only have 5 things on our list. And so there's lots of things, obviously, that are worthy of consideration. And so I didn't want to lose suggestions. We've had folks come on calls and advocate for their parks, and these things haven't necessarily changed. And so I kept that list of those things so that really is a way to kind of start thinking about it. At the end of the day, we have to whittle it down to 5.
Hey, Deb. Deb.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Julie. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to say you can have more than 5. It's recommended that possibly you limit the list, but you're not stuck at 5.
Yeah, it's recommended that you limit the list, but I think it's good to, be disciplined about it too. Oh, here's the list. I mean, if we end up having 6, all right. So I guess where I wanted to start was really if there are folks who have, like, is there anything missing from our existing list? And while folks look it over, I'm gonna pull it up too.
Well, which list exactly are you looking at, Deb? Are you looking at the FY27 continued support, or?
Oh, well, so let me explain what that one is. So the FY27 continued support are projects that actually have funding.
Right.
And so these don't need to be on our list.
Right.
Julie had recommended that it was important for us to not forget about them, and I think in general it's good to have visibility on them.
Okay.
So for folks on the television, on the screen, updating the play equipment at Fort Independence Playground has Community Parks Initiative funding. Van Cortlandt Park Bailey Pedestrian Plaza, we've seen work by DOT to kind of really clean up that area and make it easier to enter the park. So I think that qualifies, at least in terms of improvements to that point of access. The restoration of the historic Kingsbridge Heights Community Center building, they got funding for their emergency roof repairs and repointing, and have told us that they don't need to be on our capital priority list anymore.
And Deb, if I can interrupt for just a second, because I'm not sure everybody knows this, the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center is actually a Parks Department property.
Right.
Which is why we're talking about it and not some other committee.
Right, exactly. And then the engineering study of Van Cortlandt Park Stadium, that engineering study is taking place right now. And then the Spite and Dibble Shorefront Park restoration is an active capital project that is funded.
Deb?
And then, yes,
Jody. Hi,
Hey.
let me turn my camera on so I could say hi. Hi, everybody. I
Hi,
looked
Jody.
and it is not listed on the capital tracker, but I do know that they had selected a designer. They had selected somebody for the contract to design it. but I didn't see it on the capital tracker.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but I was able to find the number and send it to Pat from the list. So if you want, I can go back into my notes and find the number, the actual number for its you know, for its funding as a project. That'll help
That
you
would be-
find it.
That would be great. And I did ask, I think the last meeting I was at was September. I did ask Joe for an update on that. So if we could just follow up with him and see what its status is.
You want an update from Joe, or do you want an update from Kat or whoever?
From whoever, but I had asked and Joe said he would look into it. So I could just email Kat directly.
Yeah, and then
I try to go
I
through the
take-
channels.
Yeah, no, totally. I take that to mean nothing's happened. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you. And then we did, under expense priorities, we at one point had some funding to support free swimming lessons. There's a pilot happening to support free swimming lessons under Mayor Adams. Where the Gray Foundation is providing $1.5 million for swimming lessons for 2,000 second graders. And so because of that, we, you know, decided to put our request on, to the side to see if there would just be more funding in general for swimming lessons. And then the Bruckner box connection in Upper Henry Hudson Park was repaired by a collaboration between the Parks Department and DEP.
Good.
Not repaired, in progress.
In process, okay. But they seem to know what's wrong, and there's no money you need for that though, right, Jody?
Unknown. The last I spoke with the plumber and he said that they were going to fix the part from the Parks Department to the DEP pipe. And then it was up to DEP to figure out if there was an issue on their end as well, because they're really not sure. So it sounded like Parks had to do their pipe part to figure out whether DEP's piece worked.
So Parks hasn't done their side yet, though.
As far as I know, no, they were working on it in October, but they turned all the water off in the parks in October. So I think that stopped it, and the water doesn't go back on until April.
Got it, okay. So we'll mark our calendars.
Yeah, it is, don't worry.
I'm sure. Okay, so that's what this is.
All right.
For continuous support.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then, some previous capital priorities. I can put them on the screen, but I can also just read them really quickly. So the redesign and reconstruction of Bailey Playground, that's been our #1 budget priority for a while. I would advocate strongly that it should stay that way, but we can talk about that at the next meeting.
I'll talk about it right now. I agree. It should be #1. It's been on there for years. It's a disgrace that it's still on there and still not funded.
Yeah,
And I think we just have to keep going at it.
yeah. It's a big project, but it's definitely worth doing,
Yeah.
and it's a very well-used park. Reconstruction of Old Fort Ford Park. Old Fort Ford Park actually has had some work done. Let me just get this real quick. So the basketball courts, okay, yeah. So the basketball courts have been resurfaced, and as I mentioned, all of the trees have been planted, and there's actually some nice plantings at the entrance of the park. It does, and the benches have been replaced. The stone walls need work though, the fencing needs work, the playground equipment is multiple years, but all quite old. They've asked for improved lighting, which is a completely reasonable request. And also in the spray, the little spray area needs to be updated as well. Marble Hill Playground lighting. That was a request that started a couple of years ago. And it's to install park lighting, or in the pathways and activity areas within the interior of Marlboro Hill Playground.
Mhm.
There aren't any lights at all there. It's very dark at night. Restoration of Lower Brush Park staircase. This is a restoration of the flagstones, pavers, steps, and handrails. And I will say too, that this one, I had, my mother-in-law was recently staying at the Methodist Rehabilitation Center. And so I learned of how often the people who stay there actually use Lower Brush Park. And that it struck me that the steps and stuff being in the condition that they're in is particularly dangerous for the elderly people who are there, so worth noting. Reconstruct Riverdale Playground basketball courts. So the Riverdale Playground is over near Seton Park. And this was to replace the nets, rims, backboards, and resurface the court. Reconstruct the Hackett Park dog run. There's a small dog run in Hackett Park. Jerome Park Reservoir pedestrian safety lighting. This is a request to put like a basically park style lighting along the walkway within the parkland area surrounding Jerome Park Reservoir to improve safety, especially after dusk when it gets very dark over there and starts to feel pretty desolate. For folks who don't know, Jerome Park Reservoir itself is operated and owned by DEP, but the perimeter around it is parkland. So Fort Independence Park is certainly part of that, but all of the perimeter directly adjacent to the park all the way around is parkland. And then reconstruct Washington's Walk. This was a simple one to make the pathways ADA accessible, update and add benches, and replace the temporary chain link fencing with actual permanent wrought iron fence. If you go to Washington's Walk, there are parts of it that are actually quite high up above the sidewalk, and they don't have permanent fence. So they have usually a combination of snow fence or a metal fence, chain link fence.
Deb, I thought at one point that this work was going to be done, or some of it was going to be done in-house by the Parks Department.
They,
Did
yeah,
that
it
never happened? Okay.
I mean, when they're doing the playground, the Strong Street playground, there will be some nice fencing going between the playground and the building, which I think will be great. It's really gonna make it kind of much, kind of clean it up and make it much less susceptible to graffiti, and to make a cleaner barrier between the backyards of some of the buildings and the
Right.
park itself. And really the whole thing could use that kind of clarity, because it's really a mixture of different fences that different owners of different buildings have put up.
Okay.
So those were suggestions we had for local parks. And then in Van Cortlandt Park, there was converting the Mosholu temporary golf house to permanent park administration building. Is Stephanie, are you still on the call?
I am.
So is this still of interest, converting the the Mosholu temporary golf house?
It
Used to be
is,
something we never-
the issue is still about the sewer hookup. That's the issue.
Okay, but it's still something we should keep on the list to discuss, is getting that sewer connection.
Correct.
Okay.
But I mean, we've been talking about this for
A long time.
several, yeah, I think at least certainly 2 years, and I think 3 years. The connection, isn't that a DEP question?
Is?
It is, you said?
Yes.
So, I'm not sure, I mean, I understand why it's here, because it's going to be the park's headquarters building, but it's also a DEP issue. Somehow, we've got to get these two agencies connected so that this work gets done, because as I say, we keep talking about this thing, doesn't sound like the biggest project there is, and it's not happening.
It seems like part of the problem, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, is the kind of the closing out of the work and getting the Mosholu golf people kind of finalizing whether they're gonna continue to use that temporary golf house or move out of it, and there will be other uses. And I don't remember, maybe Stephanie, you do, if it's currently considered part of their concession contract. I think it's not, but there was discussion for the renewal in a couple of years. Was that right?
Yes, but at the end of the day, the trailer itself needs to be on the city sewer line, so it's actually it doesn't really matter whose it is because there's also in that location there is Chandler barbecue area with a public restroom, and that restroom is also running off a septic, so that restroom needs to be connected to the city sewer system.
So maybe it would be more effective to advocate, because there's the Chandler restroom, there's this, and then what about, isn't there a restroom just directly beside it? Is that the restroom you're talking about that's Chandler, or is there another restroom that's closer to Chandler?
No, there's only that one that is in the barbecue area.
In the barbecue area that's right beside the golf.
Mhm.
Maybe it's like we should just combine them to as like one budget priority, which is that sewer connection for both of them.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I thought, my impression was is that the reason that it mattered whether it belonged to Marshall Golf or Parks was because usually with the concessions, they try to get Marshall Golf to pay for the sewer connection. What that was my kind of impression, what was happening, was they were.
That seems not to have happened.
Push that off on them.
Right.
Well, I think they didn't wanna, I'm not sure they wanted to commit to it. Oh, maybe Valerie would know.
This goes back years and I can't remember. I'm trying to remember.
I know.
It
Yeah.
goes back many years.
Yeah, no, we've been working on this for
For a long,
30
long
years.
time.
Yeah.
But who said what?
Mhm.
Hey, Valerie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm back. I kind of lost you for a second.
Well, I'm glad you're back. We were, just discussing the restroom connection over by the Mashalou Golf Course. It's a topic that we've been discussing, probably for 8 years, not, maybe longer. There's a temporary golf house that's there, that's a trailer, but that is certainly, there's competing interest for it, it's so needed. So, and it has a bathroom that's currently kind of part of a septic that's pumped. And then there's a restroom not too far away from it, that's part of a barbecue area that also has a septic that's pumped. Both of them are not that far from DEP connections, because there's been a lot of DEP work that's actually been going on in this area, just part of a different project. So we just happen to know where all of the pipes are because everything's been dug up. We've been kind of advocating to get this sewer connection done so that, these were more usable bathrooms. Is this on your radar? I mean, and do you have any advice as to how to kind of break through this detente of, or like, this inaction, particularly since it's a DEP connection?
What you could do is shoot me an email so I can forward it to the commissioner, so we can get you a follow-up with a response.
Yeah. Okay.
I would copy Parks on that, make sure Stephanie's on that.
Right. Okay.
And also include Joe McNary, because he's the manager. When you send me that
No, he's
email.
not.
to the
No, he's
commissioner.
not, Valerie. No, he's
That's
not.
you, Stephanie?
Yeah, Stephanie, because it's actually in there for the
Okay.
park.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for clarification.
No, of course. Okay. All right, let's see here. Next, reconstruct Van Cortlandt Park fencing at entrances along the Yonkers border. So Stephanie, is this still something that should be on the longer list of priorities?
I think it should stay there on the list of priorities just so that we don't lose track of it. Yeah.
Okay. Establish a Parks Enforcement Patrol Command in Van Cortlandt Park. This one should certainly stay. So
Yes, move it up, move it up.
So Joanne, what this one is, and Carol, so there is very little Parks Enforcement Patrol staff in the Bronx. they are stationed in Pelham Bay Park. And so when we kind of did a deep dive on this issue, was that last year or was that the year before?
Good question.
I think
I
it was,
think
I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago when we first brought it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's every year.
Well, it comes up every year, but there was a year where the PEP officers were really great, and they came in and they really talked to us about how much staffing they have and where they're stationed. And the long story short is that they're stationed in Pelham Bay Park. They have very little staff, and that it contributes to them not being able to respond very quickly to issues in Van Cortlandt Park, not being able to spend very much time in Van Cortlandt Park because they need to get back to their main house, their main command area, and that they literally don't get to really any other parks except for perhaps Fort Independence Park. I do see them kind of coming around a little bit there, and when you look in you can go onto the park's website, and there you can actually see the radius where people are within 10 minutes of it's the radius of where PEP officer has been within the last so many hours or something. So you can at least see where they kind of roughly patrol, and it's mostly just Van Cortlandt Park. And that's certainly the parks that are on the far side of our district don't get any attention from PEP. So this also, I think, I mean, I'm not sure exactly why Jody has her hand up. I'm gonna guess this is part of the reason we have vandalism in a lot of parks on the far west side is because there's very little enforcement. What the difference for PEP between PEP and NYPD? NYPD, you know, obviously that's the police departments for more serious crimes. PEP is really well trained in parks rules and kind of enforcing and guiding and directing people, so that if you start to set up a children's birthday party and you don't have a permit for it, you know, they're gonna advise you that you can't do that without a permit. You know, so they're a good kind of first line of defense before the party of like 500 people starts with the big sound system, because they can just kind of, if they actually were deployed in a reasonable amount of time, a reasonable amount of volume, or had where they were a little bit closer, that you know, they could maybe get ahead of things. And Stephanie, this original request came when we were having a lot of car shows in Chandler Field, or we were having in that parking lot. We were having we were having some muggings, we were having motorbikes on the greenways, we were having a lot of kind of general chaos in Van Cortlandt Park. That's certainly gotten better, I think. The NYPD has worked with PEP to, you know, really improve the conditions in Van Cortlandt Park. But Stephanie, would you still say that having PEP in Van Cortlandt Park would be a big win for this side of the Bronx?
Absolutely, 100%. It'd be great.
Do you want to add anything I said? I mean, I'm trying to summarize for the new committee members.
No, I think you've covered it. I think that you know, just to add that there's not a lot of park enforcement patrol officers currently, and you know, having more in the borough would be advantageous for not just Van Cortlandt Park, but for all the parks in the area. So it would be really, really great. So.
And then our last thing under the heading of Van Cortlandt Park is upgrading the restrooms, the conversion of the nature center into, I think restrooms is where it was left, or a concession of some sort. That is, do you have more of a final idea of what you would like to convert the nature center into? Or do you want to do a study, or like, how would you like to approach that?
So that's actually a really great question for Commissioner Ponte as well. We're talking about it internally and are about to have a meeting about it, so it would be perfect timing for her to share with you where we're at.
Okay, great. All right, great. And then under equipment, we've got equipment for litter collection within the district. I guess that's a Joe thing. I'll ask him. Ask Joe.
We always need vehicles. We always need vehicles. Vehicles die. Get them on the list now.
Exactly. We got district equipment, we'll come back to, we'll ask you about that too. And then additional mini packer vehicle to reach remote areas for litter collection in Van Cortlandt Park in District 13, and one packer vehicle to be assigned to District 8. That was where we combined all of our packers into, we packed our packers into one budget item. And I assume you still probably need a mini packer, yes, Steph?
We do. We definitely still need a mini packer.
Okay.
Just for those who are not familiar with parks lingo, a packer is a garbage truck.
I kind of figured that one.
All right.
Said it so.
Okay.
And then under natural areas, upstream stormwater management of Alderbrook stream bed in Riverdale Park. So this river, the Alderbrook stream is over near Wayfield. And it washes out due to runoff coming down from the Henry Hudson Parkway, kind of all the way down to the river. That the storm flows have been very high, particularly from climate change, but also I think from some of the, like there's been expansion of some parking lots and things like that, but they get a lot of water. And so we spoke to the Natural Resources Group, which is a special division of the Parks Department, and they suggested that we could ask for additional funding to remove some of the sedimentation and invasives and try to restore it so that it was more robust. So that's where that one comes from.
And so there hasn't been any action in that respect since.
I don't think so. I can double check though.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any either.
Yeah. Jody, has there been any, there's not been any action on Alderbrook Stream, right?
No, not that I know of. There's been some crazy dumping, so sanitation has actually been responding to it, dumping at the entrance, where that little culvert is on Palisade Avenue, it's Spalding Lane. But Parks hasn't really done anything in there.
Okay. And then we had under greenways, in anticipation of permitted access, the construction of pedestrian and bicycle connections between West 230th Street, public access permit, and off-street connection to Harlem River. Oh, I see, this is the connection between Tibbetsbrook Greenway, or I guess I should rename it, if it gets, I wrote that down tonight, we got the kind of what they were officially calling it. I mean, is this?
This is what we were talking about earlier, and the answer was that once you get below 230th Street, that's not the Tibbetts anymore. That's now the Harlem River study that's going to take place.
So should this be a study, or is this a purchase of a land acquisition? I mean, last year I think we kind of did it as a land acquisition, but this year it seems a bit like the Adams administration are trying to put together what they can, and I guess Chauncey's not on the call anymore, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, technically speaking, I think at this point, it might not even be Community Board 8. I think we might be in Community Board 7 at that point, I'm not sure about that.
I think it's us to 225th, so it's like one more block.
Okay, could be, yeah. But yeah, it's really, as they said earlier, they stopped at 230th Street on the, so everything below that is the Harlem River project.
Right. Construction of pedestrian and bicycle connections between. So this was really like, we want you to build the greenway. This is funding for the greenway.
Yeah, to make the connection, right, yeah.
So maybe we should make the language a little bit clearer that it's.
Yeah,
Should it be,
okay.
they got money for the study, I think that's.
Well, that's a study, that was a raised grant, a federal grant, and that's a study. And it's not just for the Harlem River, it's for some other greenway proposals as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
But
funding.
that's still in an early stage.
So what if we said something like funding for the construction of a greenway to connect the end of the Putnam Greenway to the Harlem River Greenway?
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
they'll figure out where exactly that would be.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah, then we've, under cultural institutions, reconstruct Wave Hill swale, reconstruct the swale adjacent to Wave Hill along Independence Avenue between West 239th Street and Spalding Lane. So this is the same area we were talking about with Alderbrook. This, the swale is just, you have this, you have the street, and then you have this kind of cobbled, what's the word? It's not quite a gutter, it's not
Trench?
quite a sewer, it's kind of a fancy
Yeah,
trench.
A
yeah.
trench that goes like this.
It goes like
Right,
this. And that it's in poor condition and has collapsed in some spots. We checked, so Wave Hill is also a parks property. And Wave Hill is responsible for, everything up until 15 feet within the roadway. So all of that swale is them. Their in-house people took a look and they assumed it would be about 200,000 or 300,000 at least to fix.
I don't remember that.
And here we are. So we put it on the, we put it on the list. I don't think it's been fixed. I haven't been over there recently. Hey Jody, do you know if the swale is still collapsed?
Last time I was at Wave Hill for their winter event, it was still in bad shape and had lots of debris in it.
Okay.
Save the swale.
Save the
Save-
swale. All right. Okay, and then these other things we already took care of, the previous expense, oh, those are previous expense priorities, so the Parks Enforcement Patrol Command within Van Cortlandt Park is the actual personnel and basically so expense priorities are, kind of ongoing, operational additions. Whereas capital priorities are, I think the number is like, 300,000 or something, but very few things cost less than $300,000, it seems.
But it's also something that's supposed to last for, I think, 5 years. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Right,
Yeah, but it has to be something that lasts for a period of time.
yeah, that's what distinguishes it as a capital,
Mhm.
capital item. So these are the expense priorities we've considered. One is just the Parks Enforcement Patrol Command within Van Cortlandt Park. PEP personnel stationed in Van Cortlandt Park, including additional PEP officers sufficient to properly enforce DPR rules and regulations in Van Cortlandt Park and other Community District 8 district parks. So this is just simply to pay for the people. Repair Bruckner box connection in Upper Henry Hudson Park. We think this one's actually being done or will be done within budget. Crushed stone and boulders for maintenance is something that was requested by our district manager for the Parks Department, which is just it's a supply of crushed stone and boulders to help them fix tracks and walkways and dock runs in District 8 in Van Cortlandt Park. They've requested a Gator type utility vehicle for landscape management, maintenance and operations staff within Van Cortlandt Park. Stephanie, you still need that?
Yes, I do.
And then the funding to support free swimming lessons within the Bronx to all youth under 16. I already described that we put that one on hold for a minute. So is there anything else that you've got in mind that you think? I mean, I can also just really quickly review our capital priorities. So we had 5 of them: Bailey Playground, Old Fort Ford Park, Marble Hill Playground lighting, restoration of Lower Brust Park staircase, and then equipment for litter collection, which was the mini packer and the packer. And the reason we kind of picked these, one, Bailey Playground has just been a passion for a long time. The others, the Old Fort Ford Park is very heavily used. And we wanted to try to kind of spread them out in the district. And then Marble Hill Playground is also very heavily used and it has its own, a different council member. Old Fort Ford Park is in council member Sanchez's district. Bailey Playground is in council member Dinowitz's district. Marble Hill Playground is in
Karina?
Carmen de la Rosa.
Carmen de la Rosa,
Sorry.
her district. And then restoration of the Lower Brust Park staircase was kind of our Riverdale distribution. And then we wanted to do something equipment wise. So that's how we came up with those guys. And then under expense, We went with the Parks Enforcement Patrol Command as our number one. The Bruckner box is done, crushed stones, and then the Gator type utility vehicles. One thing I would like to add to our big list is, the transformer for Van Cortlandt Park.
Oh, right, yes, we discussed that, last year.
Yeah, so right now, there's no electricity in the main kind of staff house, near the 242nd Street subway station is a building that they use for their main building for a gathering for meetings and stuff. Also, the restrooms, the nature center, the golf house, and the Van Cortlandt House Museum, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, don't have power except by a generator right now.
So partially. So the golf house right now is being run on a generator. Everything else is intact, but I do have good news, which is that I have it. It seems like that will be funded, so I don't know that you need to add it to this list.
Well,
Good.
is there any ETA or?
That I don't have for you, but we can probably get that information for you.
Okay, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yes.
There was one other I wanted to bring up, Deb. The pedestrian bridge, 233rd Street, that project, the last time we checked in was supposed to be ready this year, this spring, I think. Well, that's Stephanie again. And I'm just wondering, what is the status at this point? I haven't been up there myself in a long time.
Right.
So I don't know what it looks like. But Stephanie, do you know anything more about the 233rd Street pedestrian bridge?
As I understand it, the Parks is working to get permission. I think they may need to work with City Council to get approval to use the money for the new project. And I think that that's what they had spoken about last time. That's still sort of moving slowly, but that's where they're at.
I think in
Okay.
December, what Kat said was that they were working on reallocating
Right.
specific funds that had been for the
The
big
other
bridge.
pedestrian bridge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still at the starting gate.
They're still the starting gate. Well, we've got a gate now to start from.
I like the glass half full approach.
One thing about the Bailey Playground, I was wondering if it made sense under expense to request a community visioning study or some sort of, because one of the things we put together with our Bailey Playground ask was kind of to integrate the green space.
Right.
And I was wondering if maybe as an expense ask to get it started was to ask for like a community visioning, to get have Parks work with the community to get an idea from them of what it could be, so that they could maybe start building it or, getting manifest.
Well, wouldn't that be part of the design process?
It
Because
could be, yeah.
the first step in the design process is to meet with the community on all of these capital projects.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to break that out. I think that would be part of this project if we can actually get this project off the ground.
I think they've done that in the past. They have had that.
They do that
visiting.
sometimes, and then sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes it's like
Right.
us is the,
Right.
we're the only time they
But
come
it's
to
not
actually
like
present, but.
it's foreign to them. I
No,
think,
no,
you
no,
know
they
what I
have-
mean? So therefore, maybe they just need to push.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at, anything to move that project off the ground would be wonderful.
Wonderful,
Yeah, whatever it is.
I have a question actually regarding the stadium actually. There's actually very little lighting in the stadium. Is that part of the budget? I know there's a lot of things on this list.
Yeah.
That it's like we're choosing five.
We're gathering, yeah.
We're gathering, right? We're gonna get to the list.
Yeah.
But the lighting in the stadium is one that I was just kind of,
So
has
this,
come to mind.
so the stadium, so that they're in the middle right now of doing a study. And part of that study is they're doing community input sessions. And the community input sessions were basically like, what would you like to see here and how would you like the space to be used? And lighting was definitely a big thing that I know that came up. Was that a lot of people said, you know, this is too dark and it doesn't feel safe at night and all of that. Stephanie, do you know what the ETA is for the outcome for that study? Was that this spring?
It will be in the spring, yeah. There's still some engineering studies that have to be shared with parks internally before we can go and share it broadly, but that's where we're at. They're going to be sharing engineering studies with parks imminently.
In the spring, okay.
And Stephanie, this, sorry to barge in there. It's more than the stadium, right? There's a sort of master plan for that area.
Correct, yeah, it's almost 20 acres, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a safety issue. You know, because at night it's very dangerous. I seen people,
yeah.
and even drug use is actually.
Yeah.
Well, even just walking on the sidewalk along Van Cortlandt Park South, because there's often trucks parked there. So you're kind of between like hydrangeas and trucks and in the dark. You know, just kind of tucked in there and it doesn't feel entirely safe.
More about
I mean, you know, you can't trust the hydrangea.
My next question is, when was the last time that the gym equipment, the workout equipment was updated in Van Cortlandt Park?
Sorry, I missed that question. Where was?
Is there adult fitness? Where is the adult fitness center in
The
Van
parade
Cortlandt Park?
ground? On the parade ground, Johanna?
Oh, you mean the stuff that like encircles it?
But it's next to the dog park, right? So we just want to see when was the last time it was updated?
It's a good question. I can find out for you. I don't know when the last time it was updated. You're talking about over by Canine Court?
Yeah.
Okay.
Broadway? Is that the location you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can find out.
From the looks of it, I would guess around 1950. But I'll be curious to know the answer.
Yeah, just something to consider.
Yeah.
Just again, I see a lot of investing in lighting, you know, and structure. But how about health? I think I don't see it, even though the park obviously promotes health by people walking and utilizing it. It's something to just consider.
Yeah,
for the future.
Is there an opportunity to put one further north as well? I went to the classic playground, which now has adult fitness equipment there. And it's actually very nice. It's functional.
Yeah.
You know, there've been a lot of weird experiments in adult fitness equipment over the years in the parks. We have over in Jerome Park along the reservoir, there's some sort of weird thing that you're supposed to spin like this, I guess. I don't know. But the one in Classic Playground is a lot of really good functional equipment. I think it's quite nice.
Well, the equipment in the playground, there's very little of it. I mean, there's hardly anything there. A chin-up bar and, you know, a couple of other old pieces of equipment. So, I mean, I wouldn't even call it a fitness area. It was at one time, I suppose.
Yeah, I see people kind of like using it as the best
Yeah.
they can, utilizing it,
Right.
taking logs and driving it over and.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys who have a big log that they keep there that, you know, for weightlifting, and I did a chin up. So, but it's, yeah.
All right. Anything, Carol, do anything? No. All right, Ed, you've been super patient. I meet you.
Just real quick, a lot of these things sound like crossover for public safety items, you know what I mean? So as we've done in the past, like with the lighting, I don't know if we ever got all the lighting we requested around the reservoir, but yeah, I didn't think. But you know, open invitation, we can always bring this stuff, do a joint venture here, and that usually helps prioritize these things towards the top of the board. So we could always bring that to our committee as well, some of these issues, if you guys choose to do that. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting, I know we've tried joint resolutions in the past. I don't know if they've always been so successful because in the actual budgeting sausage getting made, they ended up getting kind of just dumped into the parks bucket anyway, I think essentially, or told that or kept in some other bucket and said that you're in the wrong bucket and so they wouldn't comment on it. But I
Okay.
wonder if like a letter or something from the Public Safety Committee to Parks would help us kind of dislodge some of them, like something like that, if we decide to go that route.
That's interesting, Deb, and we should actually know that so we don't spin our wheels and actually waste our resources if they're not accepting it for that reason. We should get something definitive on that.
Yeah, we did, when I was on traffic and transportation, that's where I noticed it, because we did a lot of joint resolution, or not joint resolutions, but joint budget priorities. And they would, a lot of the feedback we got from the agency during the agency feedback section was that this is not us, go talk to Parks or something, instead of just giving it to Parks and having them comment on it.
I think that's exactly what happened with Bailey and Van Cortlandt South. Yeah, they kick it back and forth.
Kept kicking it back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go our separate ways this year, I guess.
Jody, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, in your long wish list of all the things that had been brought up, I was combing through the fiscal year 26 register that was already posted from the mayor. And I didn't catch if you mentioned last year, Julie Jenkins had asked for the renovation of the Ewan Park Suicide Hill. Was that on the wish list?
I took it off of our wish list last year because Joe said it was something that they could figure out with her within operations and maintenance. That it wasn't a capital project. They were like, we'll work with you on it. That was kind of his response last year. So I didn't include it when we kind of did the vetting of the list.
Okay, she had been on earlier, but she left. So I just caught that.
Did she say that was what she was on for?
No. I just remember seeing her on, and then I was like, oh, I didn't hear Ewan Park, and we had also asked for the same thing for Henry Hudson Park. So especially the sledding lawns, they get pretty beat up. So all right, so I'll try to follow up with Joe, or is the community board going to follow up with Joe about it?
Well, do you want to check in with Joe when you talk to him, and then if you don't get anywhere, then let us know and we can try to bug him about it as well?
Okay, yeah, I have a big list for him.
Oh, you want me to do it first then?
No, it's okay. I've got the 2 parks, so I have a bunch of stuff for him. All right, thank you. But I didn't hear Ewan Park, so I was like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, no, there's nothing on with Ewan Park right now. So, but I made a note, I'll just check in with Julie, because you're right, she was on the call, and and she's not on the call anymore.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, anything else for our first draft of our? No. Okay, all right, great. I will follow up on with the questions we have, and then when we meet next time, we can try to pluck our top 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah, we'll make a first draft of the priorities.
History, yeah.
Hopefully Eric can help with some of the funding.
Yeah, well, and I didn't know that if there was a fiscal year 26 register out. I don't know if anything's been funded.
Yeah.
I think there were 10 park items on Community Board 8, and all of them said agency supports but cannot accommodate. Please resubmit.
How original.
Yeah.
Well, no, that is original, because they used to say agency cannot accommodate, ask your council member.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is new. They're saying like, yes, we're in favor of this, but please resubmit. So so that was it was posted on I think the 17th when the preliminary budget came out. And there are other committees where we're just like does not support, cannot accommodate. So there were a couple of things of that too.
Right.
All the parks ones were we support.
Right. One thing, Jody, while I've got you, we received a request for Half Moon Overlook Shorefront Park for tree pruning of the look. So we reached out to Central Forestry, and they told us it would cost $1,122.56 to prune the trees near the Half Moon Overlook to clear the view. So basically, they were like, do you want us to do it? And so I checked with Farah about where does this $1,122.56 come from? And it sounds as though like it would come from Councilmember Dinowitz's office if we would want to ask him for this money to be allocated for this purpose. So this was the first time I'd ever been given such a small specific amount. And I don't know what Councilmember Dinowitz's budgets are like, or whether this is worthwhile to do, but I mean, Jody, you're closest to it. Do you think it
Well,
would be worthwhile?
I'm also
to
the
do
steward
this
of
in the
that
spring?
park.
Yeah, no, exactly.
My group also stewards that park. We have 4 people with permits from the Parks Department. So, my perspective is that the part of the view that's blocked is, there's a particular person who likes to take pictures of the swing bridge. And that's the part of the view that's blocked. And I don't think the trees are further down. They're actually, I think the ones that are blocking are further down, not in shorefront, but possibly in the triangle. But honestly, there are so many trees in Henry Hudson Park that's heavily used that really need, there was pruning came through. They did like major thing, but there's a lot of maintenance pruning that needs to be done, and we don't have permits to do that. We, through Partnership for Parks, we are not allowed to prune.
Right.
So, $1,000, I'm just wondering like, how many small trees can they prune for help? So,
Right.
so that would just be and considering that the last I spoke to Greg, from forestry, I think they had 75 out of 300 positions filled.
So I
And
think what makes maybe this one different that we got a quote from is that often we ask them to prune for health and they say we're on a 7-year cycle. And so the pruning for health is outside of the SOP essentially, their standard operating procedure they've got a process, they want to stick with that process when it comes to pruning for health. Because this is pruning for a view, it seems like it kind of gets it outside of that process. Is there anything else we should prune for a view, essentially, that might also be pruned for
what
health?
about removing invasive trees? I mean, we've got I don't know what your park's like, but we've got crazy invasive mulberries and ailanthus trees that are actually growing under trees that parks planted. And I'm allowed to remove invasives, but only to a certain diameter. I can cut a tree, but only a certain caliber tree. And these are big trees. They've actually killed off some trees that were planted. So, that's just, I'm just sort of, my priority is the view isn't totally blocked. It's just if you take a picture of the swing bridge, there's a branch in the way. You could still see the GW, you could still see Inwood, you could still see everything. It just seems like that's such a nice but not necessary thing when there's so many other necessary things in Shorefront Park. I mean, they planted beautiful dogwoods right across from Half Moon. They're totally overgrown by like 20-foot tall ailanthus trees.
Right.
Which are harbor spotted lanternfly.
Do we want to ask for just to have the ailanthus removed from the overlook?
I'm just saying those kinds of things to me are more priorities for Shorefront Park, since we're doing such heavy lifting and removing all the honeysuckles. And I'm sorry, for new board members, I'm Jody Colon, founder of the Friends of Spuyten Duyvil. This is our 30th anniversary year, so we'll probably do some celebration. And my group stewards Henry Hudson Park under Partnership for Parks, and we have individual permits for 4 of us, going on possibly 5, for Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park, which is Half Moon Overlook, all the way down to the Metro North train station. And we also care for the native plants and the tree beds at the Spuyten Duyvil Library. So that's why, and I was a committee citizen committee member for 10 years, 20 years ago. So,
Yeah, and Jody's a big advocate for parks, so
Mhm.
we're gonna, so thank you so much. I know it's getting kind of late and I want to get Laura in, because she's been very patient, so I think that brings our,
Okay.
this, yeah. This to a close, and we can move on to new business.
Well, can we first move on to old business,
Oh, yeah,
which comes before new
Yes.
business?
yes,
Next month, we are committed
yes.
irrevocably, unconditionally.
Don't- Well, assuming there's no
Permanently?
pandemics or,
Yeah, assuming right, that something doesn't blow up, to a discussion of the Van Cortlandt Park Master
So
Plan.
Stephanie, you looking forward to it next February meeting?
Oh, yes.
I love the enthusiasm, Stephanie.
That's a recorded line.
It's all for you, Bob. It's all for you.
I know, I'm grateful. Just so everybody knows, the master plan is a decent sized document, but it's actually on the homepage, excuse me, it's on the home, excuse me again, it's on the homepage of the Parks Committee. So, you know, if you go to the Community Board 8 website, there's a tab for committees. You click on that, it brings up all the standing committees. You click on the Parks Committee, and there are a bunch of links there, and one of them is the link to the Van Cortlandt Park Master Plan. So this was a master plan that was drawn up in 2014 as a 20-year master plan. And we have now passed the halfway point. But, you know, I wanted to get a check-in on where we are on this 20-year master plan. So that's what we're going to talk about in February.
Yeah, so Cameron Barone and Stephanie are gonna put together an update of the projects that have been completed, maybe some projects that are not prioritized anymore. And, yeah, and what lies ahead in the next 10 years.
Mhm. And one other thing, I apologize, I'm not going to stay around. It's been a long day. I'm not gonna stay around for the discussion that's coming up, but I know we're going to talk about that at the executive committee meeting, and I'll make my remarks, my comments then. But I did want to bring up one other thing, which is the Bronx Park Speak Up is going to be on February 22nd. It's a wonderful event. It's over at Lehman College. It's in the faculty dining room. I think it's the music building, the faculty dining room. It's parks advocates from all over the Bronx come together to discuss different projects. There are workshops and panel discussions and so on. If you're interested in parks, and presumably everybody here is, it's a great event. It's a Saturday, the third Saturday in February. I think it starts 11:30, something like that, and goes on until about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
There's also
So-
a great lunch.
Yeah, there's also free lunch, free
And,
lunch. There is a free lunch.
wonderful speakers and
Yeah.
wonderful tabling, and people
Yeah.
are just sharing from every park. It's an amazing event at Lehman.
It's Woodstock for Bronx Park.
Yes.
Without the music and without the drugs. So it's really not Woodstock. But anyway, so, and having said that, I apologize. As I said, I'm not gonna stay for the discussion, but it's gonna come up again.
Yep.
So,
All right, very good. Thank you, Bob.
all right, thank you.
Good night.
Good night. And I will exit quietly.
Actually, before Bob leaves, he raised a good point about the Parks Committee homepage. There's several things that are existing on the Parks
Yeah.
Committee homepage. So maybe as homework for next time, just go take a look at it. You can check out the master plan while you're there.
Mhm.
And then you can also discover that there's all sorts of other things, and we can discuss whether we want to keep them or whether we want to ask to have them moved.
Yeah, it hasn't been updated in years.
A long time.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
How many pages?
Oh, it's just like, it's just.
It's links. It's just a bunch of links.
Just some
to-
links.
Yeah, various things.
But like, you know, do we still want the Bee Coyote Smart Information Sheet? Do we still want the feasibility study for the Yonkers Greenway? There's just like various things that have come up during different meetings.
Yeah, there's curriculum, the 4th and 8th grade curriculum for the Enslaved Peoples Project, which was several years ago. I mean, you know, there's interesting stuff there. It's worth looking at,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure that all of that still needs to be on the homepage.
right. Well, and there's some things like the final design for Tibbetts Brook or the Strong Street Playground, things
Oh,
that are
yeah.
in process that might be helpful to
Yeah,
add.
absolutely. Yeah, not everything is outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Again, my,
Thanks for these
my
presentations
apologies.
tonight.
What?
You'll get everything at exactly.
Yes, exactly. I
Yeah.
know.
Have a
And
good night.
and then again at the board meeting, I'll be
night.
after that. Okay, good night.
Good night. All right, Laura, the floor is yours.
That's,
Wait, old biz?
Oh, you have old biz. Oh, right. What's your old biz?
I just wanted to update the committee since I have spoken about it for 2 years and most recently a new year about vandalism in Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park and in Henry Hudson Park. So for Henry Hudson Park, there's a specific person who has been coming out, removing plants, putting in her own plants, cutting trees, weed whacking, misidentifying herself as a parks employee or as the volunteer who takes care of the park, which she's not. I finally, after dozens of convos, phone calls, weekly meetings over the phone, I met with Greg from Forestry, Alberto, who I believe is the regional parks manager, Sergeant Torres from PEP, Park Supervisor Nicole Smith, Park Supervisor Fraser Mariano. And the bottom line is that if PEP has to respond, catch her in progress, so our photographs of her violating parks rule do not count. They have to respond, photograph her see her in progress, have her produce ID, have her wait there until forestry can respond to tell the PEP officer exactly what plants she has touched so it can go on the violation form in order for them to give her a violation. So I did catch her in action. I called 311 as they said. I went back and forth between 311 and 911. It took 5 hours for a response and she was long gone. So so it's very frustrating because we jump through hoops and follow the rules. And she does not and can do whatever she wants. But it is another, I know Van Cortlandt has more serious crime related issues. The moped muggers and the incidents that happened at Chandler's Field. But that PEP station at Van Cortlandt Park would benefit many other parks. I know Julie's got people rolling garbage cans down the hills and doing all kinds of crazy stuff in there. So I just want to encourage the community board to continue your advocacy for more PEP officers, because we've had years and years in Spuyten Duyvil of people just whacking down anything that they don't want and pulling up things. Somebody ripped out all our native plants and put in a vegetable garden in Henry Hudson Park. So that response time, 5 hours, is crazy long. We'll never stop people from killing trees.
Right.
So, but I appreciate the committee hanging in there with me and trying to help me resolve it. So we've come to a resolution, which is there's really nothing they can do. So sorry to be such a downer.
So sad that it takes hours and hours to plant and years to grow and minutes to kill.
Yeah. But on the upside, we're still plugging in there after the snowstorm. I was out there, I recruited 5 people. We shoveled all the paths. Parks has 1 snowplow salt spreader for 33 properties. So we take care of the inside part of Henry Hudson Park, and the people in the park are volunteering. We'll be doing our great backyard bird count with the Audubon Society on February 15th and 16th in Henry Hudson and Shorefront Park again. So I'll leave you on that up note that Friends of Spuyten Duyvil is still active in the winter. This is no time to rest.
So Shorefront Park, February 15th and 16th?
February 15th for Shorefront Park. That's a Saturday. February 16th for Henry Hudson Park. And we'll pair those with a volunteer day as well. I'll send a flyer. I appreciate the office staff for posting our flyers on the CB8 website. That's been a nice help to get us some visibility. But,
great.
so I tried to leave you on a positive note.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm done. I'll hang out for Laura's, Priscilla's Law Chat.
All right. All right,
Okay,
Laura, the floor is yours.
okay, Ed and I are on, and thank you
committed.
for the opportunity. I handed out a resolution that was passed last night at the Public Safety Committee. And you may want to just take a minute to look at it.
Were there many changes from the previous draft?
Just a few little ones, but not too much.
Okay.
But
Good, you want to give a high level?
yes,
of
that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So Priscilla's law was, it's a local law to amend the administrative code of the city of New York in relation to requiring that every bicycle with electrical assist, electric scooter, and other motorized vehicle be licensed and registered by DOT and get an ID number, which would be displayed on a license plate. So this is a very serious public safety issue, because when the city council passed legalizing e-bikes in 2020, they had no foresight that this would be an explosion and that it would have such an impact on quality of life and public safety, because the Public Safety Committee has for years gotten persistent complaints about speeding, operating on the sidewalks, running red lights, ignoring crosswalks, going the wrong way down one-way streets, creating dangerous, conditions. We've also gotten complaints regarding Van Cortlandt Park and, other parks. Mainly there was that robbery and there was gang-related, and this was in other parks across the city where there were attempted rapes and robberies, and bikes make very quick getaways, and that came to the Public Safety Committee. We feel that if you remove the anonymity and you hold bicyclists accountable, then this culture will change and you will have a safer environment. The data is in 2024, you had 13 people die from e-bike crashes, and and 48 people died since 2020 from crashes. And it's important to move in this direction, we feel. And Ed, if you have something you want to add.
Sure, Laura.
Yeah.
So just to add to what you said, so you mentioned the problems we've had in Van Cortlandt Park that have been reported to us. It wasn't really just one robbery, it was multiple robberies. And that's been a recurring theme across the city with 2 people on e-bikes doing stick-ups and stuff like that. Having a license plate on something like that would be helpful in identifying, but it's also really to me, the biggest stat that stands out that's the most disturbing is, which we added to the resolution, is nearly 250,000 emergency room visits and 215 deaths nationwide between 2017 and 2022. So Laura and I both watched. They had a hearing where 400 people testified, and you should have heard some of these stories. I mean, people are hurt severely, and there's no accountability. In I think it was about 90% of the cases, they never found the person who did it. They just left the scene. So I think Laura's correct when she says it's an epidemic, because it has significant support right now in the city council as well. Eric spoke about it before too. He's supporting this. He's sponsoring it. He's a co-sponsoring it. And it has 29 council members currently. I mean, for me, it's you know, these motorized vehicles are operating dangerously, not only in the parks, but going the wrong way on sidewalks, going the wrong way on streets. And there has to be some type of accountability. Cars have license plates. One of the things, you know, how is it going to be enforced? We have cameras everywhere, just like we can get a license plate by a car that runs a red light or a car that, you know, goes too fast. They have cameras, not just the red light cameras. They have the Argus cameras. They have the speed cameras. There's so many cameras out there nowadays. People can be identified a lot more easily. So we don't have to go have cops chasing people around like Dirty Harry in the street to catch them. So that it's going to cut down on a lot of unnecessary enforcement efforts, chasing, you know, which is not the policy of the NYPD anyway. That's why a lot of people get away with this stuff, because the NYPD is not going to, they've confiscated a lot of bikes, but the way they confiscate bikes is not through chasing bikes around. It's by cleverly stopping them when they're in compromised positions at red lights or on the street, on the sidewalk. So, I mean, this is a public safety issue. There's too many injuries occurring, and these are motorists. These are motorists, and motorists need to be held accountable, just like other motorists. So I don't know.
They're also souping up bikes so that they go, you know, even faster. And so the amount of illegality on what already exists will get worse. I know I was on this Parks Committee for many, many years, and there were a lot of complaints. It's currently now on the Putnam line where they allow bikes, but the e-bikes are causing problems. I know when I was former chair of the board, people were sending in pictures of bikes on other trails as well. You know, and if you were able to identify them, take a picture and get the license, it would be much easier to crack down.
So,
You know.
so Laura, I think we talked about this a little bit before, so I have been kind of paying more attention, honestly, to who's on the sidewalk coming towards me, and what I've really been noticing is a lot of like they actually already have license plates, a lot of them, because they're mopeds. I mean, there's definitely there's
Mopeds aren't covered under this.
right, because mopeds are already licensed.
That's
and
right.
They're licensed by the state as vehicles.
That's right, DMV.
And then you've got, and so a lot of the delivery people seem to use mopeds, and they drive as though there are no rules. I mean,
Well, mopeds are now, they have to have a driver's license, they have to have insurance, and they have to have a visible plate.
yeah,
And that's because they're heavier and faster, and that's fairly new. And since they started doing that, what the sponsors of that state bill, that was a state bill, said that the climate, the Wild West,
Is
has
better.
much better because of this. And we feel that if you do that the same with e-bikes, you'll get a similar, you know, calming down and cognizance of the traffic rules.
but I just to say though that I say that I think it's better. I think, you know, because you used to have those mopeds that you could rent. Remember the what was it, Via? I think Via was the little mobility service where you could, you know, you could give them your credit card and you would see 2 or 3 or 4 kids on the back of these mopeds going up and down Grand Concourse with no helmet on, and clearly unsafe. And they, you know, they eventually stopped that service. But the thing I think that concerns me with this as it's written currently, because I agree with you that that both mopeds, the bikes that have been converted to e-bikes for delivery that have those kind of big batteries on them, and that are basically throttle driven. Like all of these bikes that are throttle driven, they mostly go 20 to 25 miles an hour. And to me, there shouldn't be distinctions in the categories the way the city has made them. And so it's really muddied the waters in terms of who should be on a greenway and who shouldn't. Because some of the city bikes, for example, they're pedal assist. You have to pedal them, and then the e-bike part of it gives you a little boost and they're very helpful going up and down hills. But they're not the kind of speed demons that you really worry about that when you're coming towards you on the sidewalk and stuff. So I think the thing that worries me about this bill is that it sets up this whole, it seems like a lot of money where there's no allocation of money in the bill itself, like where the money is gonna come from to set up all of this licensing and the administration of all of it. And then if you, everybody with e-bikes, including people who have pedal assist e-bikes that are just kind of these basic little, friendly, well, not friendly, but casual biker style bikes, everybody would suddenly need to go get plates. So if there's a lot of effort and some money to this, and so I then step back and say, would it be effective? And that the mopeds still seem to drive on the sidewalks without nobody's really enforcing anything. It seems like it's harder for them to maybe get the mopeds because the point of sale has got more restrictions around it. But that overall, I worry that there's a lot of expense and effort to setting the program up that doesn't really have the payoff that you would hope, because there's not the enforcement just isn't happening even with the stuff that is licensed now.
Laura, do you mind if I address that?
Yeah, sure, go.
So there's two parts of what you said. So the first, you mentioned that mopeds are riding on the sidewalk and really nothing is happening. I have to push back on that a little because I've been shown by the 50th and by another precinct confiscated mopeds for stuff like that. And you'd be shocked if you walked in the back of the 50th precinct. Last time they took me back there, they had about 50 mopeds back there. I couldn't believe my eyes. So the enforcement is being done. We may not be that aware of it. Like I said, I was shocked to see all the mopeds, and I know the 50th is doing a very good job. Every month they have accumulated mopeds in the back of their precinct, which they've confiscated. So that's one thing. The other thing you mentioned is
I have a follow-up question there, Ed. So
Sure.
When they confiscate the bikes, is it because, like, it sounds like then they've got their hands on the bikes. So are they able to simply take the bikes? Does the license plate make a difference, I guess? Like if you're on the sidewalk, whatever you're doing, if you're in a bike or in an e-bike that doesn't have a license plate on it, can the police just simply confiscate it regardless if you're doing illegal behavior? Like, does the license actually make a difference?
I have a headline: Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul announced removal of 73,000 ghost cars and illegal motorized vehicles. This is from a few months ago. They're cracking down. And that's why we need a public safety and all over to all our council people to fund more enforcement. I mean, to me, it's not a question of not doing the accountability and not getting the license plates and the registration. There'll be presumably a registration fee that will help fund the administration. This bill, you're right, it doesn't address the nuts and bolts, but it is the beginning of accountability where people feel threatened. Hundreds of people testified, schlepped on a rainy, crazy day down to City Hall to testify about their injuries and hospitalizations, which cost Medicare, which cost, this is an out of control public safety menace.
I think we agree that there's a problem. I think the difference is in terms of the solution. Like, would it be better to take the money that you would spend on licensing and spend it on enforcement?
You need both.
Yeah, but
And also in terms of fires.
But can't you just take the bike? Like, do you need a license plate to be on the bike? It's a $1,000 bike anyway. If you
What
just
Ed
take it.
said with about the cameras and things like that with speeding and getting picked up, having that picked up and tickets. To change the climate, to change the Wild West climate, you need to do this. You
So
need.
Deb, my direct answer to that question is if the bike is doing something illegally, the cops can confiscate the bike, whether it has a license plate or not. But the point of having the license plate is the cop, there's so many cameras around, you can get so many more people doing illegal stuff as opposed to it. They have to literally stop them at a red light or get them in a compromising position to stop, because they'll just run and they're not going to chase them. With the cameras, without the license plate, nothing's happening. They're gone. They're ghosts. With the license plate, even though they're not apprehended right away, it can be traced back to whoever has licensed that bike. So it will result in a lot more enforcement once the license plates are there, because think about all the ones without license plates that get away, that they're unable to ticket for illegal activities.
It might also, the supporters of it feel that it will assist in reducing the lithium fires. That when bicycles, e-bikes have to be registered, have to be licensed, there's an identification process that you don't have now when they're investigating fires. And there's even on the sale of it, there's no regulation of e-bikes at all. And I think it will improve the situation with the fires.
How would it, my understanding is that the mechanism would be similar to the way the plates are issued for police cars. Is that kind of, because I also just wonder, like how do you get a plate, right? Do you have to go down to like?
You're talking about in this law? Or just-
Right, I mean, just in general, like how, like, cause right now, the mopeds and motorcycles and cars, it's all handled by
DMV.
New York State, and you go
Right.
to the DMV. This seems like it's a city program.
That's right.
And so.
DOT.
But DOT doesn't have an office that you
Not
can go
yet.
to. Well, I mean, that's, in terms of expense though, like it's,
The city
do you-
has.
Would you do it at the point of sale? And if you do it at the point of sale, then what happens when people try to resell their bikes? And what happens when people when they're just riding their bikes in from Yonkers and they don't live in the city, but they're on the Greenway, but they don't have a plate? Because they actually live just outside of the city or in New Jersey. Because a lot of these bikes, they travel. I mean, the worst offenders, I think, are truly the delivery people, because they've got a lot of pressure to get from here to there. But there's definitely folks who drive those long distances with these e-bikes because they're touring bikes. And how do you handle the
people, I
plate
think,
requirements for them?
The people who will have the issues with having their bikes taken away, with having fines, with having problems, are the ones who are speeding and the ones who are doing all these infractions. I don't know the answers at this juncture to all the nuts and bolts questions, but I do know, I mean, as far as how
How do you
this
make
is
it
going
work?
to work.
How would this work? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to speak on that when you're done, Laura.
Yeah, the city spends billions of dollars on programs.
I
They
know
can
it, but
find
we
the
want them
money.
to spend it on parks.
That's
You
right.
know,
Well,
it's like-
Right.
They waste billions. It's on us to scream, really.
That's pretty much my answer. So that question has been arise. How is it going to be paid for? As you know, as a member of the Public Safety Committee, my interest is in public safety, and this bill was co-sponsored by 29 city council people. I think that, we have to be concerned with what the public safety aspect of with the machinations of it are going to be what they're going to be. I don't think we scrutinize every law that comes before in terms of how much is it going to cost, where is it going to come from. I know that's a concern, but that's more the concern. I mean, the people who authored this bill have something in mind. Do we know everything that they have in mind? My main concern is public safety, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or?
And we're sharing this because we will be taking it to the executive committee. We will be then taking it for a vote in February. And we took it to TNT because clearly this involves that committee. And we took it to Parks for the same reason, because we want your feedback. And these are all good questions, that you're asking, but I just love your thoughts.
We really want your support because we believe strongly in it, and it is a public safety issue. And you know, we get a lot of complaints from our constituents about, you know, in the park activity, motorized vehicles that don't belong there on trails, almost hitting people. And we get these complaints regularly. We've been getting them for 3 years. So that's why we decided to bring it to your committee, because we think it has great relevance for the parks.
It's definitely an issue. It's been an issue for quite a while. My question is city bikes. There's no license plate on those city bikes.
There would be under this.
Well,
They would be included.
They'd be included into that.
Yeah, I think that they're considering is some carve out, because all of those bikes are already registered with numbers. And then they're assigned to an account when the person's riding them, and so they can trace back the person.
And they also go up to 25 miles per hour.
I think,
That's what I
I
just
thought
said.
they were 20. but-
20, 25.
I thought they were 20, but.
Okay, it's
Which is
class
very
one.
fast. That's very fast. They have changed the game.
They have,
E-bikes.
yeah, that's fast, definitely that's fast. Or someone just walking by, children, for example, can easily be hit by these e-bikes.
Oh, we heard testimony from children, from parents, and kids who've been hurt on, walking to school. There's a lot of injuries, a lot.
The main issue is that they do not obey traffic laws. That's the main issue.
Yeah.
So I got 2 hands up, and it's 10 o'clock, so I'm gonna take these 2 folks, and then we'll go from there. Jody?
Yeah, I mean, we've been throwing around terms, but an e-bike is different than a scooter, is different than a moped. So this is for all electric vehicles, because the speeds are different.
Not mopeds.
Well-
That are already registered.
You know, this includes
all
scooters.
other e-bikes.
Yeah.
Anything motorized other than mopeds.
Okay, and so I listened to the presentation at the other committees, but you know, Ed, you keep mentioning the Argus cameras being able to enforce by taking the pictures. Is that legally allowed, or does there have to be something else passed? Like, are they, so can you use the cameras for that purpose?
Well,
Like, are the cameras limited to what they're allowed to photograph for enforcement?
Well, there's different type of cameras. You have speed cameras, you have the Argus cameras, which are really surveillance cameras. You have red light cameras. So, I mean, I've gotten a ticket in my car for something. So if it's for, do I know the answer to that? I'm assuming in this case, because you know, in a car, in a vehicle, in a motor vehicle, you will get a ticket. So I don't see any reason why you would not get a ticket, and why that wouldn't be legal if you.
I think the challenge, Ed, might be that with the speed cameras, at least, you have to be going 11 over the speed limit. And the speed limit's 25, and so that puts it kind of outside of the range of the speed that these vehicles can go, A, and then B, I don't think the speed cameras understand sidewalks, for example, like they don't pick up reckless driving or anything, they really just, they know speed and they take a picture. So.
But the Argus cameras do, and that's the key. The Argus cameras are surveillance cameras. They just take, you know, they have video footage.
Right, but that's the.
He has to go look.
So my point is that you mentioned them blowing the red lights, and I'm just asking, can a red light camera actually, one, catch a bike plate, because that's something smaller, and two, is it, you know, sometimes when cameras are put up, they have very limited enforcement because people are always worried about privacy. So that's something I would look into, is whether red light cameras are limited to motor vehicles like cars, on motorcycles, and whether they would apply to these other vehicles. But again, it just sounds like the same thing that we're talking about all the time is enforcement. You know, it doesn't matter if they have license plates, we can't get PEP to come to parks for people who are killing trees, which is already illegal. And so it just sounds like, this is something that needs enforcement, and without the funding for that, it's not really going to stop people. It's already illegal to ride a bike on a sidewalk if you are, I think it's, what is it, 14 and older? So they're already doing illegal things, whether they have license plates or not. And so that was just my question about what impact would this have? You know, yes, it was a terrible thing. This person got killed by it, but I'm thinking the bigger picture. How would it be enforced in our neighborhood? Broadway's crazy, you know, and also a lot of the delivery people on e-bikes are renting them. There's a company, I think it's called eWiz, but they do rent them from companies. So, you know, would those companies be forced to put license plates? Would Citibank be forced to put license plates? Like those kinds of things. This has a lot more, you know, I love there's a lot of legislation to try to fix things, but the operational piece is always what I'm asking about. How would this be enforced and put into place, and what difference would it make? So that's just my 87 questions in one.
I'd like
Sorry.
to just comment quickly on the enforcement part. So, would 100% of traffic violations be able to be enforced? No, but even if 10 or 15% were enforced, I think that would be a marked improvement about what's going on. So to pass legislation that would make an improvement is better than not passing legislation where nothing's going to happen. And I understand that there's always issues with, you know, especially I heard what you're going through with the parks, with the woman, and the frustration you're going through with, you know, how these agencies respond certain ways. But in this case, I mean, obviously they're not going to enforce 100% of the time because the enforcement is not available, but anything is better than nothing. Do I know what percentage it will be? I know they're going to catch some people. So that would be my answer to that something is better than nothing. I don't know what degree, and I guess the longer this they work at it, the more successful they will be. And as Laura mentioned, I think it's going to be a deterrent to a lot of people. Because, you know, just like, you know, cars don't want, you're not going to get caught in the same spot speeding twice once you know you've been photographed and how to pay a fine.
I mean, there's a difference between illegal pruning, illegal working in parks, and people dying and getting maimed on a daily basis.
Well, they're both about enforcement, though, at the end of the day, that not enough attention is paid to actually enforcing the rules so that the money that the Parks Department spends, in this case, on forestry and, you know, planting all these plants and things like that just ends up being wasted because there's not PEP officers.
No, I'm not denigrating that. I'm just saying that you have people dying and getting and getting maimed every day. And we have to insist on a better city budget and where the money goes. I mean, this is for us to scream about.
Well, wait, I lost my train.
You know what I mean? It's
So
just,
what about part of it is, I think part of the resistance to it is also about, e-bikes being an alternative to cars, right? So that people are using e-bikes. I mean, certainly around here, at least, it's actually nice to have e-bikes because of the hills.
use it safely and use it legally. You know, don't run through red lights. Don't go wrong way down, you know, one-way streets.
It doesn't give you license. It doesn't give you license to act recklessly and endanger people.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're discouraging people from using e-bikes. So I think that once you put these hurdles in, then the people will be less likely to.
I think
like the people who do follow the rules may be less likely to.
If the city council, when they legalized e-bikes in 2020, had envisioned or had, you know, this is the law of unintended consequences. Now we have this mess nationwide where people are in emergency rooms and dying, and people, you know, can't walk safely. So something has to be done. And that's where the Public Safety Committee, because people come to the committee particularly in Kingsbridge and where it's very congested, more congested, where the problem seems to be more. Month after month, they come.
Johnson Avenue, everywhere, yeah.
We would be derelict if we did not say, you know what, there's this law and it's going to improve public safety and we're going to support it and we're going to hope that the board supports it. Because that's what we have to do, because there's nothing else there.
All right, so I'm gonna stop you. Camelia, you get the last question.
It's a comment on this topic because this became kind of the micromobility, traffic and transportation. Super interesting meeting. Laura and Ed, just to say, yeah, I was on the same. So I work in East Bronx where we actually have also the e-scooter shared program with the 3 companies, with Lime, with Veo, Deb, and with Bird. So in addition to the e-scooter, to the electric powered bicycles, we also have the issue of the e-scooters being dropped on people's driveways in the middle of the sidewalk, etc., etc., etc. In full openness. Republican council member also supporting this legislation, yeah. And I was for like 7 hours on that hearing, and some of the testimony was absolutely heartbreaking. And it was also like, how to say, bicycles on bicycles violence and creating victims and people whose lives were like destroyed and careers destroyed. It's undeniable. Having said all that, and to present also the other side of the argument, look, even in this short conversation, how many times did we all say the issue is primarily with the delivery people, with Grubhub that pays their delivery riders on number of deliveries per hour, so they go at crazy speeds, in order to make the quota, etc., etc. The issue is not with regular people on a consistent basis. And I mean, I agree with Jody here. How to say the thing we all agree on is that it's an enforcement issue. I mean, seriously, in this country, the whole bicycle and micromobility took off like crazy, especially during COVID with all the deliveries, etc. But like, when was the last time you saw a police officer on a bike? Because I don't think I saw one, except in like the movies from Europe or whatever. Like, where is that catch up that the police, that NYPD, did NYPD create its own division to police this? I mean, you drive on Henry Hudson, you see on the West Side Drive, it's like a highway of bicycles. Like, I would be afraid, you see what I'm saying? So did our enforcement keep up with this high increase in micromobility and bicycles? Also, to give you some, my answer is no, and it's there where we need to argue as well, right? Why? How much will this cost? $19 million, DOT said, to create the subdivision, to register whatever, the new place or whatever. What other places tried this? Los Angeles, they closed the program in 2009. Toronto spent a year studying registration, they rejected it. Detroit and Washington tried it in 2008, they repealed it for similar reasons. All I'm saying is, isn't this too much of a sort of blanket approach? Can't we just try this, working with the Grubhub, with all the deliveristas, with everybody, to just apply this to solely to commercial e-bike, and then see how it goes, and then see if it reduces the number of incidents, versus just going with it like with the hammer instead of going at it with a scalpel? You see what I'm saying? Because what will happen is what Deb says. It will prevent people from continuing using this much more sustainable means of transportation. And you see the city is in the process of expanding the bike lanes, etc., etc. You see even here with all our hills and everything. I mean, the new bike lanes, all of them were successful. Mosholu is an economic renaissance, and we were afraid when they did Mosholu bike lane, oh my God, it will all go to dust. So all I'm saying is, I mean, if you wanted to, clearly Council Member Dinowitz is supporting this. I think he's on the list as co-sponsor. But the community board should maybe have a more sort of strategic approach to this, and that approach is to support the law enforcement, the enforcement part on the existing rules, and maybe make this suggestion on applying this to commercial e-bikes, which are the primary violators and the primary such vehicles hurting people. So just wanted to put all this information out there and just encourage everybody to do your own research and see if this is sort of worth it or it's worth tweaking. Thank you.
Right. Would you consider like amendments at all to the resolution? I mean, to also propose like additional enforcement? Because I know it's very kind of contextual based, like all of the whereases are giving kind of context for the problem. And then it's just a simple therefore be it resolved, we support it. Would you consider like a therefore, like an additional therefore be it resolved that is also about the need for enforcement?
Yeah.
For me, it would depend on how it's worded, because the therefore be it resolved of our resolution is basically simply supporting Priscilla's law and urging our city council members to co-sponsor the bill. So I'd have to see what was proposed. Of course, I'm never against anything that's going to improve the resolution. And I just wanted to just briefly say to also something that Camelia mentioned. She mentioned a couple of other studies, but I mean, there are a lot of significant studies from other countries, and we added it into the resolution in Denmark in particular, where there are 29% fewer deaths and 64% fewer crashes due to this type of legislation. So that's significant. And I realize Denmark is not New York City, but so there's a lot of numbers out there that you can throw around. We're just trying to figure out what we can do to stop all the injuries, and this looks like as solid as legislation as we've seen so far. And do we want more enforcement? Sure. And if you can find a way to word that, or Laura, I guess we'll think about it. We'll put our brains together. But what we're basically doing here is just supporting a bill that 29 members of our city council are supporting. But I'll give it some thought and consideration, and if we can put our brains together, maybe we can come up with something. And Deb, I can talk to you on that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
All right, well, so I think that leaves us, we've reached the end of the meeting.
Right, there's one man standing,
One
two.
person. There's two. I have a person who's second to adjournment. So we're still getting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
All right, then.
Now,
That is funny. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I think we had a really good discussion.
I think so,
The
and
presentations were good. and-
I think it was a great meeting. Deb, you run a great
Thank
meeting,
you.
great meeting.
Very interesting. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Night.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Stop the recording.